And
Sorry, just missed it.
that's okay. We have the final release and acceptance of the jail control project. Their retainage is the 14,000. We do have them under contract, a maintenance contract for 5 years. That's part of the bid. But we don't want to hold their retainage and all that for the 5 years while they do the maintenance on the system. So that's the release and acceptance of the contract. Item 4 is a small works contract between us and All Seasons. And that's for the HVAC systems for the courthouse. Well, yes, we'll be signing, we approve the contract to be signed for $146,000. But we actually won't pay anything or receive the units till the spring, probably.
Which one are they moving over here and from where?
They're-
5-ton unit, they're moving from somewhere?
Yeah, we bought a brand new, because the unit went out in WSU, where the seniors are now. And we had to put a new unit in there. We don't want to waste that unit. It's bright, it's got 1 year on it. So they'll either move it with this contract or we'll do something different and put it up, but it will go on the roof of this building eventually. No sense in buying another unit when we have one. Okay, we have some pay estimates. Pay estimate number 6, the lead contractors for $145,000, 471. And that is for, of course, the courthouse entries. We have pay estimate number 4 to grade works and a total of $450,650. And that is for Old Mountain Road. And pay estimate number 18 to Kirby Nagel out for $668,151. And the last one, pay estimate number 1 to Interstate Concrete and Asphalt Company, which is doing business as American Rock Products, and the amount of $559,619, and that's for the Roosevelt Grade project. I think that's it for the pay estimates. Yep, what do you know? So, construction program, Old Mountain contract. The contractor's finishing up on the punch list. Very nice road out there. Grant funded signs and guideposts in West Darwin, they're both waiting on signs. Nobody seems to be able to make them or can't get the products to make them, so we're waiting on that. Roosevelt grade project, paving started today. They picked a good day for it. And they'll be paving this week and next week, depending upon weather.
How much moisture can they get before they have to suspend?
Well, once you can't get the tack to break, then you don't, or you get too much where the road, you'll end up creating a slip plane between the two lifts, and then you don't want that. And you can see where it's happened in the past, like out at Glenwood Highway, when it was starting to delam before we rebuilt it or we repaved it. And that's for putting it on. A lot of times the tack doesn't break, or it's too wet and you create a slip plane.
Okay.
So we're hoping over there, we probably won't get too much more.
No, I'm wondering if it'll make it that far. We are supposed to get some moisture later this week, so.
We are, and if we do, we'll shut down and they'll be ready.
To go all the way out there then?
That's what I'm wondering. It's a lot of times it will evaporate before it gets that far.
True. The nice thing is that they have a plant sitting out there, so they're not going anywhere until they're done paving. So they won't be shut down, which we can run into with other jobs. Courtney Road, we're staking the center line for review, so we can get out there and look at that. Klickitat path, we're trying to contact Parks and WashDOT. The problem with Parks though is some of the people that are no longer there. So we're working through who we know is still there. And WashDOT, we're trying to work with them so we can get permits to work at both of their, because ultimately that project is done on both of their right of ways. Courthouse parking lots, we're continuing the design. That covers us for our road. We actually have a lot of sign requests and speed limit change requests. So we're going through the studies on those. We've had quite a few of those just recently. So we're looking at that. Maintenance projects. The crews on the east end are grading roads and we're ditching Rock Creek grade. On the west end, we're grading roads, brushing and mowing on Courtney and Sleepy Hollow. Upcoming, the facility stuff. Okay, civil site work. Contractor's still working on prepping out here. We should get results Wednesday or Thursday, Wednesday late, Thursday early, which will determine how big of a dig out we have. I think we have a plan for some cost savings on that. We're hoping. And, you know, depending on what we're doing and when, but I don't even want to guess what the dig out's gonna be until DOE
How do
tells.
they figure that out? Do they run a pipe in it to take a core sample to know how much they gotta do, or?
What we did is we dig out, you do test pits
Right.
and you go in all directions. And then they make a determination what the level is of the contaminant. And then they say, okay, you gotta go all the way to here, all the way to here.
But for depth, you just dig until you're not in the gooey stuff anymore,
We dig until either that or until we hit solid rock
or the stink goes away.
or the stink goes away, correct? So we're down about 10 feet.
Yeah,
I was hoping it didn't move, but
I
it
know. Gravity, unfortunately,
works against
keeps
us.
working.
There you go. We
Way
should,
big.
right before they fill in that hole, we should go bury something in it, and then somebody else can take it out.
Later.
There you go.
Yes, pay it forward.
Literally.
Literally.
Put a fuel tank just with water though.
Yeah.
Just so it's
So, yeah, by next week, we should have something. The flooring, we actually got the tiles. They're scheduled to begin installing them this week. Furniture is almost complete on the third floor. They'll be starting on the second floor, or have started today. Interior doors, we're still installing the dolls and the windows, and we're also Kirby Nail Out is actually installing door strikes now too, with electronic doors. Electrical, we're wiring the cubicles as they get put up. We're trying to keep up with them. Moving, we discussed before, they're putting in the commissioner, is scheduled to put in the commissioner's AV system this week. And we're training the staff on, our staff, they're training our staff on the heating, cooling. Today, they're doing the generator training. So there's a lot of things that we have to be brought up to speed so we can take over the building. Annex 5, everything else is pretty much the same and still a little ways out there. Annex 5, we reevaluated the estimate. And so we cut out all, because when we did the first one for 2, that was a complete, they move in, the building's what it would be forever. So I sat down with Ron Irick and we reevaluated, or I reevaluated, that sat back down, re-estimated. So we can patch the roof as opposed to replacing the roof. That's not uncommon to do that. We're not gonna remodel the inside. That was a big cost in that $218,000, $250,000. So we're not gonna remodel. It's gonna be what it is. And that can slowly be brought up. You know, you cut the carpet, we'll roll it up. And then when we put and then we just put it back down and staple it back in, it'll be fine for what they're using it for. Same with the sheetrock and all that. But like I said, again, we were gonna do the complete thing. That was the cost plus the paved parking lot and everything else. So after doing all that, we got it down to $108,000. They will take that.
Okay.
If you guys are still on board. They're gonna pay for the 108, and I think there's 40,000 that goes against the project to tear it down. And a few other things. That the 108 also includes the contract we have with the contractor for $45,000.
So we'll have no money in this other than
the stuff that comes with the building, yes. The tearing it down and the moving,
right.
Which we would have to do.
which you would have to do anyway.
Wow, okay.
for our new parking lot.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's much more palatable.
Again, they're not gonna get a turnkey situation, but this is livable and doable. And Ron's gonna talk to the fair board tonight and see, but he thought they were a go. They had 100,000 already budgeted. They get that extra 10,000 from you guys that they would put towards it. Hence, we were under that 110, so. If you're okay, we'll keep moving forward, unless the fair board says no, but I don't foresee that.
Okay, I'm a yes, but I don't know.
So the 40,000 for tear down is not included in the 100.
No. That's the 40,000 we were assuming we'd have to pay for that is scheduled in or budgeted for MP.
Right.
Is that 40,000 including leveling the grade and paving and the whole nine yards?
No, not the paving. No, that's a parking lot. That's different. The 40,000 is just to remove the building, basically. And, you know, pretty much you would pay that almost under all the circumstance. Well, if you demoed it, you would pay that too.
Yeah. Well, where if you sold it, somebody else would pay it, then they would. But I can donate 40,000 to the fair, so I'm okay with that.
Okay, appreciate that. It helps our schedule. Okay, courthouse entry. We are fit, the south is open again and will now remain open permanently. It's done. The east side is closed because we're working on the vestibule. We're putting up the vestibule and it's just with the parking lot, people aren't gonna get there anyway. And I just assume not have them swinging stuff over people's heads. So we're closing the east, the north, they're working on, they should have that done by the end of this week, sometime maybe the middle of next week, and the north will be open. And it won't be long, the east will be open. Within the next week and a half, 2 weeks, we will be done out here with everything. As far as the entryways, not the parking lot.
We're still waiting to know
We're still waiting, yes.
if we're a super fun site or not.
Well, I don't think so. though.
I don't think so.
I think
Those tanks were that big.
no, they weren't that big, no. HVAC replacement, like we talked about. Radio sites, I really haven't had that much time to work on that. I'm gonna try to get that established so we keep moving forward. So, and at least try to hammer out that agreement. Okay, other issues and follow-up issues. Oregon Trolley Rally still going good. We've got just about everything worked out with them, scheduled for the 5th and 6th. Trout Lake Park, we had some vandals destroy our coin boxes this weekend. Not
Was
sure.
that to get the coins?
Yes, the thing is, we outsmarted them. We took, our attendant takes them out every night just so this doesn't happen.
Just put a sign up.
It says it's all gone,
Yeah.
don't waste your time.
They destroyed them anyway. So what we did is we closed off the ship because we're not gonna get the coin boxes this year anyway. So we closed off the upper showers because that's where they were. Pretty gutsy because that's the closest to the park attendant. And so the showers will still be open on the lower bathrooms until the end of October. And then we'll blow out the line starting on the 25th and turn the water off at the park. And then the the porta potties come in on the 28th. And then we'll leave the park open with only that facility, only without the water, because if we don't, the water freezes and we end up with a lot of repairs. And so we've been doing that every year. Something else we've done every year, and this helps us plow the towns or provide better service to the towns, actually get to the towns, is we've hired 2 temporary snowplow operators, one for Glenwood and one for White Salmon. And they help plowing the towns. The cost is, if we don't have a winter, you know, we hire them because you can't get them. You can't we have to bring them in. If somebody, we've tried in the past to hire and call them in when we need them. When we need them, somebody else is
Else already
hiring.
has them.
I have a question about the towns. Do we actually provide snowplow services inside the city limits of the towns?
Not the city limits, but we do in Glenwood, Klickitat.
I'm talking White Salmon, Vision, Goldendale.
No. We do, I should say no, because we do have some shared stuff, but if we're plowing
You
out,
said White Salmon, and I'm trying to figure out why we're running a snowplow on White Salmon.
no, I was actually, sorry, I was referring to more of the crew, where the crew is.
Unincorporated areas.
Yes. Yeah, town of Beasley, Hewsome, community, correct.
I was just needed some clarification.
No, so we'd like to be able to hire those are advertised for those. There's no guarantee we're gonna get them. But I do know there's some people without work, so there's a possibility we should be able to fill those. Again, what they do is we bring them on December 1st, like we have in the past. And they work with our crews and we keep them through mid-February or so, depending on if we get the snow. And once we know that we don't have much of a shot for snow, then, you know, they go.
Is this forecasted in your 2022 budget?
Yes, we keep this in our budget. We never ask for more for this.
So, to go back to the Trout Lake Park, the dump station has costs of $48.54. Is that because everybody dumps in the dump station and then you guys just pump the dump station out? You don't have a drain field or anything for the dump station?
No, it's a big tank.
Okay.
Yeah, we paid to pump it out. We used to, that was the only real drawback before we got the park attendant. People, you know, word got out that that would be a great place to clean out your RV for the end of the season. So we used to get $10 and have to pump the tank. Yeah. We don't have that anymore. We have an attendant there, so. But that ends up getting close too, because there's water associated with that, so. And again, if people want to do that, that's fine. They pay the $10 and they pump their tank out.
Well, I'm just trying to understand. We get, the dump fees of 2,000, but the pumping fees is 5,000. That's quite the benefit for those people.
It is,
How long has it been since we changed the dump fee?
It's been a little while. They used to be $5 and we upped them to 10. I think a few years ago. I can't remember exactly. I can bring that back to you, Jay. I don't know exactly. We upped them to 10. And we've kind of kept them there at 10.
Yes.
I mean, it beats people dumping it on the ground, but
Right. We should cover services.
Okay.
So before we move on though, you want an answer on the maintenance? tax.
Yes, please,
So,
please.
I'm yes. For snow plows.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say maintenance tax, the snow plowers. The
Yeah, the
snow plow-
temporary
Snow
snow
plow operator.
Okay, and I have one more. We have a maintenance tech in Goldendale that has resigned. And we'd like to fill that position again. So approval for that if we could.
I'm once again gonna say I don't want to make hiring decisions until we get through the budget, but that's just me.
I'm a yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, because those are paid out of a dedicated fund.
And for this year, it's budgeted, and next year, we're showing that we showed the same thing. So. And kind of just for everybody's, our staffing level in the road department is really based on winter services. It isn't based on what we get done in the summer. I mean, that's important, but it's based on winter services, and each one of the guys has a route. So if we, any, and I'm not saying you can't cut, but any cuts means you reduce services.
How many guys in a row?
Everyone, I don't remember exactly how many people, every person has a route.
Every maintenance tech.
Yes, has a dedicated route. And then we have the piecemeal stuff that we fill in with the temps on the west side, because years ago, we did actually make a cut in Glenwood. And that's why we always bring back the temporary person to fill, so somebody can plow the town of Glenwood, because if not, what they do is they plow everything, the arterials, and they come back and service the town. Not overly well received by the towns.
That explains some.
And that's all we have, or I have on the list. Oh, well, sorry, I have one more.
Got a handwritten note now.
Yes, handwritten note. High school equestrian team has requested a fee waiver. Now, I have the information, but we like to prepare it formally for you. So I just kind of giving you the heads up in case they pop up during citizen request, or citizen comment period. I don't think they will, but we'll actually prepare you something formally, what it's going to cost and what we're looking at in lieu of. We also have the same thing for high school rodeo too. And both of them have requested fees be waived on the winter riding, because we schedule winter riding. But we will bring, we'll bring those back to you next week on what the cost will be. And that, this plan is all.
Anything for public works?
What options do we have for the firearms training facility to get it a little closer into alignment with cost versus expense or revenue?
I think our cost, we haven't had any normal years because of the closure to the bridge. And then, of course, we had 19 was a down year. 20, we had COVID, so we lost a few months. We really haven't had a year where we've been open the whole year. But we've had costs because we have an employee out there. And we have to, so we haven't been able to offset that with cost. Now, our use has gone up. Our definitely use has gone up. Because we had 25 last weekend, even with the bridge closed, which is pretty good. The other thing we're reaching out to is, and that's why I was looking at originally moving if the fair board didn't want that, didn't want Annex 5, proposing maybe moving it to the gun range, because and we're starting to reach out to groups to actually rent the range during the week and give classes. There's a lot of self-defense classes, first time gun owner classes and all that we can either lease to somebody to do, or we could provide, because we have the people with the qualifications to do that. And so that can bring more revenue in also. So we're looking at expanding that. We've also reached out to law enforcement. As they lose places to shoot, they've talked about using the range. I know the tribe has been interested in it. Parks was very interested in it, but with the shakeup now, I don't know where they are. And tribe is still trying to get all their stuff together to actually come and use it. So once we could start at least renting it to the law enforcement agencies too, as a way to bring more revenue.
And so who goes out and does the marketing for this? Is that the person that's out there at the range?
Yeah, we've reached out to the law enforcement agencies too. We actually are, our sheriff is pretty good at getting the word out about the use of the range. And we get a lot of people that come in and just look at it, because it's still, the rumors that fly around are just kind of crazy. I mean, we get probably once a month or so, somebody comes in and says, well, I thought this was just for the Washington residents. You know, people, so there's a lot of that, and we have posted some stuff on the internet. We now started an archery shoot, so that should bring more money, you know, that should bring more people, and we're a little on the tail end of that this year. But next year we'll start out, so that brings in more people, and that was, the fees aren't as much, but the cost to set that up was, you know, just a few targets. So it's a lot, and we get, you know, we charge $5 a person to come in, and, you know, we don't have that much money into it, so it'll return pretty quick. And you're seeing that already in the costs. Of what it costs to set that up, so.
You got the brass and the surplus auction there?
Well, I gave all the information to them, yes. And that should be another revenue. I mean, I don't know what it'll generate. I've heard different stories of what it's going for, but
Give that to
We-
her.
yes, I gave it to Greg, yes.
Okay, I think it needs to be on my list too.
Okay, I'll send it to you also.
Thank you.
Sorry. I'll get it to you also.
Appreciate it.
And then in terms of the revenue abatement, what does that mean?
It's a environmental thing, and it's $1. Each shooter is charged, and so the fees are $14 and the abatement's $1.
Okay,
You have to pay the money has to be set aside in case the range was to go under years from now, or at a certain time, you can abate the lead.
Hmm.
And that was just, that's an
Another
environment.
revenue source.
That's an environmental thing. And it's really kind of, that's what DOE like to see, but ultimately, somebody will pay you to abate the lead.
Yeah.
It has a value.
That's why I said that's another revenue. source.
Exactly. But we have to show it as, yeah, we're, you know, prepared for the worst situation. We're putting money aside. Also, at the time, the port wanted that too.
so what I'm seeing though is it's $1 for abatement, so we had 807 people use the range last year versus 500 the year before. What are we on track for this year? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. I know it's more than 800. I don't know what it is. I'd have to look. I'm not sure what it is right
And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't your long-term plan to have a gun range run that thing so we don't have to pay for a staff member?
now. That is very correct. Yes. We're almost to that point to kind of look at, maybe go out with an RFP potentially to look at that. You need, you know, and there is I know there's a gun club interested. So that would be an option.
Well, that would be, the sooner we can get there, the better, because as it is right now, to me, it looks like people are paying $15 a head, and it's costing us on top of that another $55 a person to go and shoot. That's quite the delta.
Anything else? Other than seconding what he said.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Anything
sir.
that?
Okey-dokey.
We're liquefying our.
Yes, yes.
Or, yes.
Steve?
How you doing? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like I said,
Thank you.
you can make him sit back on a cheap seat.
No, he gets to join me, I mean.
And he questions,
It is fantastic.
The only issue with it is it would be better on Klickitat County, it was actually, it wasn't the state, it
Yeah.
was the county.
Except we think of ourselves as the whole state.
Yeah, I guess, right?
We have these ones. This is 911 dispatch, and then we have some that we got made for fire EMS that are around the whole county.
I would like to see this one.
Oh, the logo?
Oh, the logo,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, like
You
yours.
got that on?
Yeah,
The official.
Photoshop.
That was, those were purchased by the individuals.
Oh, okay.
That was,
They can put
not a
whatever they want on
county
them.
sponsored.
no,
Yeah.
we needed
That was
something
where I was
more.
going with the question, but okay.
No, that was the firefighters, EMS, dispatch, got together, did group orders,
Oh, but cool.
those things for themselves, yep. So good morning.
Good
I guess
morning.
Thought I was gonna do it a little later, but I think it's appropriate to introduce our new chief of ops, and as of yesterday, 911 coordinator, officially made that transition. So Roberto Ontiveros and Bill, refer to him as, so, welcome, Phil.
Welcome, Bill.
I'm still trying not to overwhelm him.
Yeah, don't let him do
So he'll run off on me, yeah. Okay, nothing on your consent agenda this week to discuss. A few things that maybe be put on your consent agenda for next week. And the public safety radio system. I think this is one of the first times that I've kind of wavered. It is functioning mostly normal at this time. We have the silent key on the fire channel that I mentioned to you when I was here last time. Is continuing. We believe we knew what it was, and it was on the Oregon radio project or the radio system to make some changes in their microwave firmware and software. They did that 2 weeks ago and it did not fix the problem. So now we're back to the troubleshooting phase and trying to determine what is causing that. At this time, we believe it may be coming from the Kaiser Ridge site and the fire base station there. So we're continuing to look into that, but it does cause silent keys on the fire channel on a semi-regular basis. The trailer repeater issues that I reported to you last time I was here, once we did some mitigation efforts, there's been no more issues reported. That doesn't get used heavily, so don't know if it's just because they haven't had the opportunity to be out there in one of the difficult coverage areas served by that or not. But as of now, nobody is saying that it's not working properly. And I have nothing that tells me that it is. On the maintenance side, the annual radio system inspection report was completed, and I have had a chance to do a cursory review. Some things that were pointed out to me in the very beginning, even before I got the written report, were the critical operational safety risks identified at the Klickitat site, which is the newly transitioned site or location, I guess, radio room inside the Klickitat fire station. And those critical risks were all had to do with punch list items that were still not done from that move. And so since those have been dealt with, there were 3 other sites that had operational risk conditions that I am still reviewing and looking into how to deal with those most effectively. And the other 8 sites had no issues reported for this year. There are still things out there, operational risk conditions that pertain to facilities maintenance. So at a certain point, I'm gonna have to be reaching out for some help on that. Public Works probably. At this flat top site, it's one of our more remote and higher elevation sites that takes punishment in the snow, as you know, the security fence, but now also the shelter has had some separation of the exterior sheeting on one side and there's a seam that's starting to split. So we need to look at that before we get any further damage.
We have a carpenter.
Do we? Excellent. So I'll be working with Public Works to forward some of that stuff onto them and ask them for their assistance and how to address that. Radio site lease agreements. In all honesty, I haven't had time to do anything on any of those since we last spoke, given the conditions. Any questions on the radio system, current operations and function? Excellent. The public safety radio system, he's got the basics from Jeff. They're waiting on the survey to be done and the data there to get into the negotiations with the new landowner. I am now providing, as I mentioned to you last time I was here, providing Rural 7 fire commissioners with monthly project updates that I received from Deputy Director Hunter, because they're more than interested in getting that site fully operational as soon as possible to provide better coverage for them. 911 call taking and public safety radio dispatching. This is where I get to turn over this section to Phil for the first time. And go from here.
So the phone call volume numbers, you'll see the report is slightly different than what had been reported in the past. These are just incoming calls. So total 911 calls, 1,188. Non-emergent line incoming calls is 2,747. Of course, that does not include outgoing calls, which the dispatchers spend about half the time doing. For staffing conditions, we're continuing to emergency staffing continues. So far, we haven't seen any real issues with filling in. Everybody's pulling together and making sure that we have the adequate staffing going on. Currently, we have one communications officer in training. She came in with some experience in North Dakota, South Dakota,
Arkansas,
that's right.
What are those codes?
Yeah, one of those.
someplace east of here.
Yeah. So we expect her to finish up training fairly fast. She has the experience with the call taking and the dispatching. Unfortunately, that county where she worked did not have technology. So they did everything by paper. So that's rather interesting.
Other counties than ours, apparently.
Right, yes. So, but we expect our training to wrap up here in the next couple of months, and we're working on trying to fill 2 full-time positions and 1 casual. Still receiving applications. Unfortunately, we're competing with several other agencies in the state that are very short-staffed, and because of the size, pay a larger amount than what we do. And we're also competing with agencies in Oregon that are hugely understaffed as well. So
Yeah, in last week's Gorge PSAP meeting days, so one of the Oregon agencies reported that now, I think it was a state level official, so there's 4 PSAPs in Oregon that are at critical staffing levels. I think I reported to you a time or 2 ago that there was one on the east side of Oregon that had less than half of their original staff, and they were calling for help under the state-to-state mutual aid. But now there's 4 in similar conditions just in Oregon.
I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better.
yeah, and one of the things that we're trying to figure out is how to get more applicants, how to advertise the job. It's not a career that everybody thinks. So we're trying to change that and promote that.
And also we can compete with like Arkansas, this county in Arkansas, where we got our last new hire from. I went to her personally in the last 2 weeks and said, get hold of everybody you used to work for or work with and see if you can recruit them. You know, they're much better working conditions, better pay, all of it. Of course, there's a different quality of life here as well, but also a different cost of living too. So, but she's gonna try and entice some of them.
We're trying every possible route, so.
And we posted a new advertisement nationwide on the APCO sites. Paid for that advertisement.
Wonder if the community college has a job posting board for people that decide they don't want to be in school anymore.
We might be able to reach that, yeah.
Something we hadn't considered yet.
And one of the other things I've been trying to do is get into the school because not everybody goes on to college.
Right.
And so picking those individuals right out of school. Our last intern was really a good fit. She would have been perfect. Unfortunately, she went off to college. However, I believe she was going to apply for the agency there.
I heard last week she's applied for their dispatch at the college.
Yeah, and that's one of the enticements because you can take it anywhere, but we're hopeful that when she finishes college, she'll come back in a few years and apply back with us. So yeah, it's hard, but we're working every avenue that we can. We're also this week we're going to be working on filling in the lead communication position that I held before. And so not much changes for that. We're hopeful that we can promote within and that person will also be filling in shifts like I am now until we can get up to full staff and then take on those duties full time. So, but we need the help. So,
Have you sent it out to all the fire departments to ask if there's any volunteers that are interested in stepping up to the next level?
yeah, yes, sir. Check that out. Fortunately for us, I think our job is really hard compared to firefighting, which I'll agree, you know, but yeah, trying to get more people. And then considering scheduling options in light of the potential vaccination mandate effects. We're not sure with the state doing what they're doing and us receiving substantial money, if there's anything that's going to come from that. If that happens and we're forced to do that, our staffing levels will drop down significantly where we may only have one person for a large part of the day. That would be, I'm not sure what the word would be, but that would be ugly and scary, to say the least. I know, thankfully, we're not state patrol. State patrol is going to possibly one dispatcher for Vancouver area, which covers Klickitat, Skamania, and all the way around.
4 counties, 1 dispatcher.
Yeah,
One dispatcher total or one dispatcher?
one dispatcher total per shift.
Per shift.
Per shift, yeah.
Certain times at patrol.
How many they currently run? 2?
No, they'll run 3 or 4, or sometimes more. Yeah.
So we're doing what we can to be prepared for any
And so
scenario.
did that come in yesterday for state dispatch? Or is that in effect now or? is it-
Yesterday was the deadline for state patrol.
And so
So do we know what the outcome of that was though? I mean,
The
are they-
information I have from the local sergeant, our office here in Goldendale that serves Kamania, Klickitat, and part of Benton County, was that he is down to 4 troopers now for that service area. And that they have been told that we're ahead of time, that for good portions of the day, they'll have 1 dispatcher on duty out of Vancouver dispatch for 5 counties, I was told. And they've been instructed to do everything except for emergency radio traffic only on their MDTs in their vehicles. When they have 1 comms officer staffing, they'll call out on traffic, and otherwise it's emergency traffic only.
So we're still to see what the fallout is gonna be, transferring calls to them. They may not get answered right away. So that's gonna cause a delay for us in holding those calls. And we're still to see what the outcome is when there is no state trooper to respond to calls within our county.
Is there anything we can do to help them in the meantime? We still have staff.
Yeah, we're still good, but we're not sure what that,
We have to see where it goes and
Where it
see
goes.
if they, make a request for any assistance to help them with their call volume. We have never had an agreement with State Patrol. The troopers use our radio system and our dispatch services on occasion when they can't reach their own. But that has just been in the mutual aid assistance realm. We've never had a formal agreement with State Patrol or Fish and Wildlife, state parks. They're all dispatched out of WSP dispatch in Vancouver. But when our center, our 911 services fail, they roll over to Skamania first. And when Old Gorge fails, then it rolls over to Cressa, and they share that workload with the State Patrol as well. So, like I said, like Phil said, we're waiting to see what the true ramifications are. It's only day 2. If they make some request, but I've already reached out to that sergeant and said, if there is some need for us to provide service to the state troopers, state parks, Fish and Wildlife, more than we've traditionally done, when they had no other officer safety, no other avenues to reach their own dispatch center for officer safety purposes, we've always answered their call. We need to have an agreement in place. So he was kind
I think
of talking to his supervisor about that.
the foreshadowing for us is it may be hard for us to find employees with so many job opportunities out there for dispatching, say for them. There's going to be more competition for dispatchers essentially, which might make it harder for us to fill our positions locally anyway.
Yeah, and we're already seeing other PSAPs that have traditionally had lower staffing than us, that had a harder time just before any of this started, filling positions. Now they're dipping even lower, and they're offering signing bonuses and other incentives, as well as one center that I know of because they're below half staff, they're offering $5,000 for a 1-year commitment from their current staff to keep them from leaving. So, yep. Best thing for us is either to get a lateral like we just did from another state that sees the benefit to moving here, or to hire someone that's local, wants to
Brand
stay
new.
local,
Yep.
and teach them from the beginning.
So aren't there about 8 to 10 people right now as of today that's currently has these skills that used to be out of Vancouver that would be available? If we reached out to them to say, hey, would you guys like a job?
No, I have not.
Just saying, it's a
right.
pretty easy spot to go.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, we can do that. We will
We
be,
turn around in X number of weeks and we're under the same mandate. and but no, I have not done that, so.
Well,
Something
no matter what, we're
to
gonna be in the
consider.
same boat, it sounds like, or we'll be down to one anyways, but if we can backfill our open positions with people who are experienced, who are probably pretty pissed off at the state right now, it sounds like a pretty good, recruiting scheme.
Something to consider. Definitely.
Yeah, so many things going on. To fill those, but I think one of the best options is, yeah, like Jeff said, is recruiting within the county, people that want to stay. So that we don't end up training somebody for another agency, down the road. Other than that, operations and training, well, we're trying to continue on our training and keep our skills up in the 911 center. Working on all the grant and administration for myself and catching up to that and making sure that this coming year we absorb and utilize every money out there that's available to us. So I'll be working with the state coordinator's office to get up to speed on that. Working on 911 phone system update projects. The state is hoping to move to text 911. And among all the things that we're working on and trying to do, that's another project. Moving slowly forward, but I'm working on getting that done before the December deadline that the state would like to have. But it's not a for sure thing. Among filling shifts and everything else, we're trying to catch up from the last year. So,
And the reason the state's pushing it is because they want to do a statewide campaign that says every county PSAP in the state is now text 911 capable, text if you can't call, a statewide advertising campaign. I appreciate that. It's a great thing for them to take that on, but we're not going to just disregard our primary critical mission priorities to fulfill that artificial deadline by the state.
Do we have the technology in place to accept it?
Once we get this newest phone system update, then everything will be in place for that, yes. But it is a process of coordination and testing with the 911 EZNet provider and so on. Yeah, there's a significant amount of coordination and work for us to make sure that all gets rolled out properly.
So once that rolls out, will the communication then be only via text? As far as you get the 911 text, are you responding in text to the?
we can, yeah.
And then how does that work? What little experience I have being out there is I know, is the other officer on duty going to be able to see that? Because so much of, I really noticed that out there is that the other comms officer is sort of paying attention to what's going on over here, even though it's not their call, they're still kind of monitoring and maybe helping. What's the if I'm all silent going on, and
there will be a little change in communication right now. So when if a text 911 call comes in, the first thing that other agencies are doing is finding out, are you able to speak? If you are, call in and let's leave this, because there is a delay in typing back and forth versus a conversation, right? And with the new generations, they go to text right away. So
that's their default.
Yeah.
And the whole advertising campaign is that if you can't call text, but if you can call.
Yeah, and so our communications officers are really good that even on a phone call right now, they will repeat keywords out loud to get their partner's attention.
Okay.
And that's what we pick up on is like, you said what? Right? And so I anticipate the texting would be the same thing. They would read out loud part of it to communicate to their partner, hey, I have this going on.
Okay.
And that's where we pick up. And then we're kind of yet to see if 2 communications officers are able to see that. Because we haven't seen that capability yet. But
Just like on the calls where anyone at a station can log into the primary call taker's call and listen in. They should also be able to log into that text and see
that conversation. Yeah.
but with this new phone system update, you can see the realities of that.
Yeah.
My number one concern for all along and why I've held off is that we take so many calls from Oregon that we have to transfer, that if we start getting a significant number of texts, which one of the reasons that I'm okay with it now is that all these agencies that have already switched to 911, text to 911, saying that there's just a very small number of texts that you get. It's not something people are starting to use a lot yet. But if that happens and we can't transfer that text to the call, right? It belongs to someone in Oregon or Skamania County's dispatch, then our comms officer is stuck as a relay for their dispatch, their call, for however long it takes to resolve that call. And I'm not okay with that. We don't have that luxury of staffing. And it takes up one of our comms officers' time to handle their call if we can't transfer it properly. And that's a technology issue.
So with that text, does the comms officer then see like a GPS coordinate of where that's coming from or what a cell phone is, or do you still have to let them know where you are?
So we have technology to see GPS, however, that technology depends on how many antennas you're hitting, how many antennas your cell phone is hitting enable.
So that's not GPS then,
It's-
that's cross location. on
Right,
cells.
it's kind of triangulating your location. If you are in a more populated area like Golden Belt, then we do have a program that's called Rapid SOS. And it will detect the information on your phone that any Wi-Fi connection that your phone is picking up, even if you're not actually connected to it, and will pinpoint your location to a more accurate point, sometimes within feet or inches. But if you're more rural, then that becomes more sparse and unreliable. So the best will always be to give your location. Getting that location from the caller is the best. And
So it'll pull in your Wi-Fi, but it won't pull up your GPS signal.
Well,
correct.
if you have a phone that's GPS enabled and you have it on, then it can use that data. Otherwise, it's using the cell carrier's triangulation data. Okay. And you can have apps on your phone that are specifically for that as well. But if the user has chosen not to share their GPS data, then it doesn't come through the 911 system.
It can be as really reliable or not at all.
Or you get the location of the cell tower that they're hitting. It can be,
Yeah, pretty
That's a
big circle.
50-mile radius.
Yeah.
that happens, yeah.
How many, off topic, just came to my head, how many phone calls did 911 receive with the latest little Golden Dale incident?
Oh, I'd have to look into that data. You mean over the weekend?
Yeah.
Subject with
Was
the
it
fire.
like slammed with phone calls or was it?
I have to
5 or
look into
10?
it. I did not get, Phil, nor I got a call on that from ours. It was a city call.
Oh.
So there was nothing that indicated that dispatchers would need supervisory assistance. So it did not rise to that level in their mind.
Well, okay.
I would have to look at the record to see
No,
actually. how-
don't waste your time, you got other things to do, I was just curious.
So, yeah, we're working on those updates. Text and 911 project, phone service. We did have a phone service outage in the Glenwood area on September 18th. Lasted about almost 5 hours, 6 a.m. to 10:45. And on any outage like that, we work with the fire departments to still staff their stations, and that becomes the default is hopefully that citizen having an emergency will go to the station.
And the emergency management and 911 public education side, that's what we've pushed out to the public for a few years now. If you can't get through on 911, go to your local fire station.
And that was CenturyLink that went down?
Correct.
Right.
Lumen now, but yes, CenturyLink.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it happens on a semi-regular basis in Glenwood. It happens more in Glenwood than anywhere in our county that will lose phone service. And then typically they'll lose all phone service, not just 911. But that's what we're concerned with. Sometimes, as in this incident, because I dealt with that on that Saturday morning personally, and was in contact with the fire chief to do some testing. They could dial local numbers, but not long distance. So that they could dial the local non-emergent number out of White Salmon and get, if they dialed that number, they could get into dispatch. Otherwise, they could not get through on 911 or our regular non-emergent line. But they staffed their fire hall for a number of hours before it was resolved. And according to Lumen, that affected the entirety of the valley is about 241 customers.
So on that, another project we're working on is with CenturyLink. They have several capabilities where if that happens and they still have the phone system within that community still works, but not reaching out. We're working with them to default that if somebody calls, it will connect to, for example, the fire hall. So that, they may not obviously be able to get up and go to the fire hall and say, I need an ambulance. So we're working on that project, and the second half will be educating and working with the fire departments to be a backup dispatcher essentially. And once we do that, we might go recruiting them as well. Mass casualty incident plan project. So that's the ATAP 6, and
I
that.
forgot one that I wanted to
Oh, go ahead.
say, and I'll take up that one as well. But the EMS call response status that I mentioned to you last time I was here at least. We are seeing that, as we suspected, that the EMS district is taxed to the point where the local fire districts, EMS responders are having to respond more and more often alone, or not alone, but as a single agency. And in the city of Goldendale over the past 3 weeks, it's happened several times, and in which at least 3 instances, the ambulance was coming from so far out that the local aid vehicle took the patient to KVH before the ambulance was anywhere near. State law allows for that anyway, and no matter what, I think it's if the ALS ambulance is more than 20 minutes out, the aid vehicle can transport, because most of our fire EMS aid vehicles are not licensed transport vehicles under the state rules. I think is there just a handful. Glenwood's one of them. Bickleton, some of them have chosen to do that, have that ability, but most don't. And so now we're seeing that have to transport by aid vehicles. It's actually becoming a reality.
Is that because EMS is on the way to Portland, or what's going on?
All the above. Increase in medical calls in general. So multiple medical calls, especially in the greater Goldendale area simultaneously. So the Goldendale ambulance goes out, the Dallasport ambulance comes to Goldendale for coverage, and either before they can get here, there's another medical call, or they get here, there's another medical call, and then there's a third medical call. And White Salmon is either staged in Dallasport for coverage the whole county at that point, or the whole EMS district, excludes Fire District 2 and 10. the last one that I heard was, the White Salmon ambulance was going through Lyle when the call dropped for another, medical in the Goldenville area. And so that's when Goldenville City Fire transported that person. They did their assessment, communicating with the ambulance over the radio to make those calls, give a patient update and so on. So we're seeing that, and like I said, it takes, it's a little more, it's by far the least concern, but it does involve more work for the comms officers because they have to do multiple paging and then more radio traffic and coordination. But the EMS district and the fire districts and city departments are working through that. I just thought it was worth making you aware of it. As I do also sit on the EMS district board, the ex officio member, although I've only been able to attend or chosen to attend one in the last year. Availability, but those are some of the challenges they're facing right now in our whole EMS system. The mass casualty incident also pertains to not only 911 dispatch and how we do that job in a mass casualty incident, but also in the EMS district world. More specifically, as I mentioned before, that plan was out for approval. I received the email last week with the approved plan and supporting documents, one of which, and I haven't even shared it with Phil yet, is what that Oregon and Washington group decided to do for our dispatch protocols. And I'm just a little disappointed that we didn't have, I don't think anybody on the Klickitat County side of the river got to have the final say approval. I didn't get to vote on it, but maybe I missed something. So we'll see what's in there and see if we can live with it, because the last plan was wholly inappropriate for the way we do business. But I believe that sitting on that committee when I was available to do so, that it was in the right direction when I last attended the committee meeting. So looking forward to having a better plan for those incidents at the very least. And I'll also follow up with the, because Phil has not yet had any involvement in this, the fire district users agreement renewals. All the 2 fire districts have returned their agreements, one of which got lost in the paperwork shuffle, and I've been assured by the fire chief that his board and himself have all signed it now, and it's on its way back to us in the mail as of late last week. And then Klickitat Fire District number 5, Centerville commissioners have refused to sign. There are multiple attempts to address their issues through the fire chief, my counterpart. That evidently wasn't good enough for them, so they've after we reached out again, they said no, fire chief's report back to us wasn't enough, still won't sign it. So now they're requesting a meeting come to one of their fire commissioners meeting. I've already spoken to Commissioner Christopher about that. I'm waiting to hear back from them as to when that is scheduled so that him and I can attend that. And
Which district is this?
Centerville Fire District 5.
My fire.
So be trying to work through that as well.
Are you still on that fire department?
There's a meeting tomorrow. Wonder if they'll tell me what they want the other meeting about.
As a commissioners meeting or a firefighter?
It's just a regular twice a month fire meeting.
Yeah, I'm after our conversation of the day, I'm still waiting to hear back from the secretary. Any questions about 911 dispatch function? Nope.
Nope.
Emergency management program report, then I'm sure you're getting regular updates from the health department. And you aware that we deactivated the EOC, still at level 3 monitoring. However, we continue, myself and the program coordinator, continue to receive and fulfill requests for more and more things, not just PPE, Also hospital staffing, test kits now. The requests are coming back to a level that we hadn't seen since early this year.
How are you in fulfilling requests and hospital staffing? How are you having anything to do with hospital staffing?
Forward that to the state EOC. It has to go through the
Oh, I
county.
see. So they can tell the state how many we're short on or critical on or.
Correct, yeah. All requests from stakeholders within a county have to go through the emergency management department of that county, and then we enter them into the state system as requests and facilitate that back and forth.
Okay.
And when it comes to PPE, they deliver it to us, and then we have to get it delivered out, which is a change in operation since the pandemic. Used to be that they would ship things directly to the requester in the county, and the emergency management didn't have to deal with it. And I'm still working to maintain a reasonable stockpile of PPE supplies. The state sent out an email, it's either last week or the week before, the state EOC sent out an email indicating that apply for what you need now, because after October 31st, we'll only be taking requests of an urgent nature. So they're trying to get to a base stockpile, and I believe that, they'll be downsizing their staff as well, but then they won't be ordering anymore. They'll only be giving it out for critical needs when you absolutely can't get it for yourself, and the wait time to get it for yourself is longer. It would put you in a critical risk for staff safety and so on.
Do we
So
have any storage room left?
no, the container's clear full, and we still have, I think at last count was 3 or 4 pallets at Rule 7 Fire Hall. And yeah, most of the things at Rule 7 were for ag producers and schools. So big 5-gallon containers, hand sanitizer, things of that nature.
Which next year we can use for holiday punch.
Oh, boy. One thing that we still, and I'll get to it later under the grant program, but we're still working on making that PPE purchase under the emergency management program grant, special for COVID. We got the counterfeit masks, N95 masks that are for the highest level for healthcare workers. We're still gonna do our best to get that purchase made by the end of the year. That's been an ongoing thing to deal with that counterfeit mask purchase and return. And now I think we've gotten clear of it enough that we can repurchase actual N95s and add those to our stockpile.
Are you not getting N95s from the state stash? I mean, can you put in a request from the state to get N95s and get them what you want anyway?
Maybe. We put in, Skyline submitted a request for, I can't remember how many thousands of gowns. And that was submitted last week to the state, and they came back yesterday with nope, don't have those anymore. We recently have not put in a request for any N95s. The reason that we're purchasing, that I'm continuing to move forward with this purchase of N95 is so that we have our own supply of them. Because those are, like I said, the highest level of protection that they use in the hospitals, health clinics and so on. But anybody downstream of there can use them if they run out of whatever else they're supposed to be using. And yeah, if any agency in the county couldn't purchase them for themselves, or at least in a timely fashion to get them before they ran out completely, and we couldn't get them from the state, it's my intent that we have enough local supplies that would cover that for a period that they could recover. And this purchase is all grant funded. If I don't make this purchase, we give $6,000 back to FEMA. Yep, neighboring counties, it's on the rise. There was 5 COVID-related deaths in Yakima County over the weekend. They report their situation reports daily still. Any other questions about the pandemic?
Nope.
Emergency management. Wildfire season report. As you know, the burn bans in all 3 zones expired as of midnight on October 15th. So last Saturday was the first day it was legal to burn, do outdoor burning. And yesterday, someone started burning slash in the Glenwood area, and their piles escaped and burned through logging slash until the fire department could contain it at a half an acre. And because it was in that heavily logged area in the slash, heavy mop up, and they called in the DNR for assistance. So if you don't burn responsibly, it is still not a good idea to be burning brush piles. Yeah. And I'm still have yet to get to updating the county code on outdoor burning. I think that would be a good thing when I can get to it, hopefully for next year.
So when they call in DNR for heavy mop up, does DNR send that person a bill? Since it's
They
FEMA?
could, yes, and so could the fire district. Any escaped burn.
Yeah.
It's like, well, actually, no, I did hear on the radio that it did cross the fence line and onto adjacent property, and was there was a grass fire associated with it. So yeah, a lot of times when it just affects their own property, you know, the local fire district, you know, that's what you pay for, right? Your property tax. But if it gets to be a bigger concern, then they start looking at charging for actual suppression costs, both the fire district as well as the DNR. And I don't know if this was a DNR permitted slash burn. I didn't get into that level of detail, but I do know it was an escape burn pile. Or actually, what I overheard was multiple burn piles.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think it was one pile. I think there were multiple.
At least 3, yeah. And the emergency notification system and adding iPause to that system, we're just on hold for now. We are having to consider, or I'm having to consider changing our emergency notification system vendor because of the issues we're having with that system and its functionality, user-friendly it is for both the customers and us to send messages and so on. So that might be something that we bring before you, either late this year, early next year, is to change those vendors. Our current contract expires in February. We believe we've identified another vendor that has a better program, sorry. Training and exercises on hold for other priorities. Program grants, you can read those. There's a long list of them, but basically our new EM program coordinator is working diligently to meet the deadlines for anything that is pending soon, getting those projects wrapped up and completed so we don't sacrifice any of that grant funding to the last date deadlines. Again, on the emergency notification system side, he reminded me that might be a good idea as people transition out of the courthouse to the new county services building, to update our system, but also to transfer all those folks, whichever offices are moving, to their new location, because we have county employees in our system by building and by office. So if there's a situation in a building or a specific office, we can send those county employees a message specifically directed towards them. So we have groups created. So unless you have any objections, it was approved by the board to have those ID cards. They're not mandatory, but the ID cards and the ENS sign up. And we work with the HR department and KC. So when new employees come on, to get them signed up in the system so they can be notified from active threats in any of our facilities, to also include the weather closures in the wintertime, we close county offices, and so on. So unless you have any objections, we'll move forward with asking the department heads and electeds that when they transition to the new facility, to have all their employees update their information with us. Commissioner Anderson. Okay, thank you. So the emergency management program coordinator's position, I'd originally come to you in the structure review with recommendations for updating the structure. One of those was to increase the emergency management program coordinator from half-time to three-quarter time. Since we've had that person on board for a couple of months now and been able to see what the actual costs are and what the grants will allow, and work through some of that with the state, we've determined that we can cover the additional wages and benefits with grant funding that exists, not using any additional local money out of the 127 fund.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If so chosen, would this grant money that you're want to use to fund this position not cover the cost, but could it be applied to a new dispatcher position?
No,
So it's here.
this is emergency management program. Yeah, we'd be using it for, instead of like equipment purchases for certain things, either like our mobile command post vehicle and the outfitting of it with radios and computers and all those
This has
things.
nothing to do with 911 dispatch.
Right, no, it's all emergency management program.
Right, just double check.
But it would be switched to do some of those things. And now that we've got that vehicle and the EOC, at a place where it's functioning with the proper equipment and technology and so on, to staff time to do the preparing, planning, public education and outreach, and just to keep up with everything that needs to be done.
So you're asking for 0 county dollars.
That's correct.
Is there a possibility that some of the things that this money could be used for, you were mentioning equipment, different stuff, that, so we won't be using it, or at least some of it for that could come back later, and now I mean, there's always the, you know, you understand what we're trying to get to is that if there's only so many dollars, and if we're spending it on wages and not buying this other equipment, and then later we really need this equipment, we know where the ask is gonna come from.
And to cover this increase from halftime to three-quarter time, we're not using all of the available grant funds. Still not using it all, right? So there would be funds available for equipment purchases. But what I have done is gotten to a point where I've gotten the EOC and the mobile command post, emergency management specific facilities and resources that we need to have for countywide response taken care of, I guess I'd say. And some of the last purchases we've been doing is for law enforcement and fire districts that have had critical needs for portable radios. It was what, 2 years ago now, or 3?
How long is this grant good for?
These are reoccurring grants. The state homeland security grants renew every year for a 3-year period, and
Are
then
these
emergency management program grant is annual.
Are these grants that you're using to buy these radios and what have you? Is any of our landfill dollars going to those same radios and what have you?
No.
So it couldn't be used to offset revenues the county already puts in.
No, in the Fund
Just
127,
clarifying things.
right, Fund 127, it's all the interlocal money.
But for the
County puts in their amount, the 3 cities put in their amount. And that budget is right at $21,000 a year for local funds. Everything else in that is grant funded through FEMA. So what I'd be asking today is if I could have verbal approval to change that position, and it's through a resolution next week on your agenda. If you can create the resolution, Casey and I get on your agenda for next week to increase that position to 3/4 time. Or if you don't want to entertain that, then we'll just drop it.
Thoughts? I'm okay. I mean, I'm personally okay as long as with the, you know, it's always the dollars are there, that's okay. And we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul, even if I like Peter. Or I guess Paul. I guess I did like Peter.
I guess I would say it's a grant funded position. If it turns out to not be, then we'll have another discussion.
Absolutely, that would be my intention.
And as long as we're not, shifting county dollars in to remove this there, then it is a grant funded position then.
Correct. And if that, like I mentioned to you for months now, that FEMA's talking about, changing the way they do things and the requirements and for grant projects and having them competitive, at least at a state level. If that's the case, we still have a better chance of getting our project approved for personnel time, for the preparedness planning, public education, and all those things, competing with all the other EMs in the state than we do for equipment and other sustainment costs, because the way that FEMA is moving their grant requirements is towards the personnel costs and not sustainment of systems and equipment. So that's all what I'm doing in the background. And I mean, if you trust me, it would be my intention that if it ever becomes an issue that those grant funds, we can't sustain them, that yes, I would come back and we'd have that conversation as to how to provide additional funding, not just, well, in Fund 127, there's no options because there's not enough local money in there to do anything with anyway, in reality. Except for the basics, there's like $1 per person in the whole county of local funds for all the emergency management program activities.
But this is insane, but
So this is the way I'm gonna fix that.
yes, sir.
Anybody else? I saw some nods. We
Yeah.
got one yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, I'll move forward with KC. Thank you. That will make things better.
Start in the store.
That door makes everybody seem a little bit edgy.
Yeah, if you don't push it open wide enough, it'll smash you.
Yeah, that happened to me last week. Okay, so we got like 3 minutes left. So I'm not prepared to give a full presentation. I apologize because I know it was, oh boy, was it last January, February, when you asked me to provide you with a presentation for sustainable revenues for the department, specifically 911 and the dispatch and radio system functions. What I have been able to confirm is that the enhanced 911 phone excise tax is at its maximum amount. There's no room left to collect anymore. On the emergency communications sales and use tax, that is a 1/10 or 2/10, and as estimated by the treasurer, it's 300,000 per year per 1/10. So either 300,000 or 600,000 per year estimated revenue from that tax if it were to be approved by the voters. And that whole entire process, including reviewing and negotiating or affirming the contracts that we currently have with the cities and the EMS district for users' fees, of the system, because that's part of the legislation. It requires us to review and negotiate or affirm the terms of each user's agreement with other government agencies. And that process is a year to a year and a half, including getting it on the ballot and so on. And then realizing those, the beginning of those tax revenues. The other option is the users fees for the fire districts. Currently, they're the only ones that don't pay users fees. And there are different ways of going about that. So this is like half of my pile on that. A lot of it is so complicated and complex. Every agency in the state seems to do it a different way, and there's complicated formulas. We divide this by that percentage, and then there's a per call charge and a per radio charge. The clerical and then finance, accounting related paperwork that it adds could be significant unless we do it strictly by population. And I was not here when the 3 contracts that exist with the cities and the EMS district was instituted. And I've not been able to find any historical document that tells me what formula they used. But it was population based and a set fee. And then when I got here, the expenses were outstripping revenues so quickly that I immediately negotiated an annual increase of 3% on those contracts. Otherwise, we had no chance of keeping up with anything. So
Well, how did we, so you have no idea how we came up with the numbers that we use now for those?
if you back out the math, it's between $11 and $12 per person in the cities. So the total amount that we charge them now for their 2020 census data comes out to like I said, $11, between $11.50 and $12. Can't remember the exact number per person in that service area. And but that for the cities, that includes law enforcement and fire, which most agencies charge more, but not all. I've solicited all the data from anybody that would give it to me from other PSAPs in the state, and the way they do users fees, and whether or not they collect the emergency communication sales and use tax as well makes a difference, right? Because they split that up in different schemes. So yeah, if you do it by population, that is the cleanest and simplest from additional work on my staff and myself. As far as users fees go, but otherwise, like I said, it can be based on per call for service, per radio call that they make.
That seems very time consuming to chase.
Well, there's lots of, the
paperwork and
data.
Whatnot, per person is a much cheaper.
Administrative position.
Yeah.
Losing money.
But if we do it by
More clerical
population,
work.
if we do it by population, and so that's gonna be kind of hard for the fire districts because the census doesn't break down the data for fire district, whatever. Because they get their funding, as you know, by the real estate tax.
Right.
Or not real estate tax,
Property
property
tax.
tax, excuse me. That's a whole nother subject. Which, by the way, I didn't put in here. We're continuing to see that revenue volume in the REIT. So we're gonna be over budget in what we anticipated for REIT revenue. However, the population based, if we do population based and we, like the EMS district right now, it was also kind of hard to determine because the EMS district doesn't cover the whole county. They don't cover fire district 2 and 10. So if you adjust the county population by
Back into
estimate
those out.
of how many people live out there, roughly 2,000. Then we're charging the EMS district 78 cents per person in their service area. If we do that math for the fire districts and take out the city's populations, the county's total population without the cities is around 15,000. And so our revenue from all the fire districts at that population base would be around $12,300 and some odd dollars, which is like, I won't make any personal judgments, but it's already starting a contentious relationship between me and the fire chiefs because we're considering users fees. To institute users fees of any kind is just going to complicate matters in several levels. However, I will do whatever I'm directed to do. But I would say the population-based users fees is the best way to go about it if you decide to do so. Otherwise, it would add a significant amount of work to figure out all these different percentages and call numbers and so on, and do that billing.
You think it's gonna raise $12,000?
If we do it at the current rate that we charge the EMS district. If we do it at the rate that we're charging the cities, which again is for law enforcement and fire and EMS if they provide it. Like I said, that's at that $11.70 per person in their area. Then that's about $150,000 to $160,000 a year. However, there will be, my belief is there will be several fire districts come to you, not only complaining to begin with, but also asking for waivers or grant, what's it called? The economic development grant.
We'll be giving ourselves our own money.
And that's the reason that the board in the past had always, it's like you just trading, because if we go through with this, my personal belief that just puts the tax burden back onto the fire districts, the same people that we collect tax money from as the county. And the fire districts are going to be faced with having to increase their tax levies to their citizens to pay for this user's fees. The most difficult among them would be like Fire District 15 and 13, Waukeikis and Appleton. Their annual revenue for Waukeikis is around 15,000, and for Appleton is around 31,000. And you add a user's fee of anything, and then they're just trying to pay for their insurance and their building and truck maintenance with those dollars amounts. So, like I said, I don't want to get into my personal opinions too much, but users fees will complicate everything. That's bottom line. That's my profession.
Well, that was a good enough update for us to decide where we want to go from there.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
Now you just gotta come up with some kind of thing to pay for the future radio towers, then you'd be fine.
Well, that's the emergency communication sales and use tax. That's specifically what it's for. It's only if that is instituted, it can only be used for emergency communication systems and facilities. And I'm still trying to drill down and get somebody to tell me on the record whether that includes wages and benefits for 911 call taking and dispatching or not. But as now, the 911 call taking grant covers wages and benefits almost entirely for half of pays for those wages and salary and benefits.
But would you be able to use some of that money and literally bank it in a fund balance
Yes,
for when?
yes. Yep, that's what it's used for traditionally. Yep. Future equipment and facilities replacements, but it all has to be emergency communications.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
No.
We're good.
Thank you.
Bill? You're welcome to the family, but you were already in the family. So no excuses. You know exactly what you were getting into, unfortunately.
I knew half of it.
Okay.
There's a lot
Some of it
things
was
that are-
hidden from
yeah.
you. or you were shielded
As
from,
Jeff mentioned, he's trying not to scare me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that,
yeah, or scary stuff.
yeah, that had not come up that I'm learning.
Yeah, okay.
Yet to be determined.
Yes, yes, okay.
Oh, it's like boiling a frog. You just ease them into it.
Right.
Put them in the cold water and then turn it up.
Chairman, do you recommend motion
I,
to recess?
I would.
So moved.
A second to recess. For lunch. Motion and second to recess for lunch. We'll be back at 1 o'clock. All in favor, say aye. Aye, motion passed.
Whenever you're ready, Bob.
And it's 1 o'clock. Okay, I will call the meeting to order. Let the record show all three commissioners are present. We'll start with our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the business agenda as presented.
I will second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the business agenda as presented. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the commissioner meeting minutes for September 21st, 2021 and October 12th, 2021 as presented.
I will second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the September 21st and October 12th meeting minutes. Any discussion on those? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. That brings us to citizen comment. This is opportunity for citizens to address the Board of Commissioners on items that are not on the agenda at a later time today. So we will start as our new tradition in chambers. We have folks in chambers, and so we can start. Actually, Susan was ahead of you. Miss Kelsey. Let me get my, yeah, I do. I got to. Go ahead.
Good. My name is Susan Kelsey. I live in Goldendale. And last week, Mr. Anderson set a meeting, a town hall meeting in White Salmon at the Pioneer Center. And from what I understand, and I want to confirm that that meeting has been canceled,
Yes, ma'am.
and it was due to,
The fact that the people that I was going to be meeting with, I heard back from them that they did not feel that it would be a conducive and safe meeting for them based on the people who showed up in the room and whatever meeting that was, and that they didn't feel that it would be safe.
okay. So it was their decision to cancel the meeting.
It was from a conversation I had with multiple of them.
Okay. And so I really wanted to be clear and on record about this. On September 14th, a group of protesters came in here. And if I understand that the meeting was declared illegal, and Mr. Sauter left the room, leaving Mr. Christopher and Anderson in chambers, talking with the group. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that I was on the 14th. I was not a part of that group, and I emailed all three of you to indicate that I was not a part of that group. I believe very strongly in not mandating vaccines, and that has been my stand, and I have been civil about that numerous occasions when I've been in chambers with you guys. And the people that have been protesting with me have acted in accordance with the rules here and have been civil as well. And so I felt it was an opportunity for us to be heard in this meeting. And I wanted to make sure that we were not being lumped in with an unsafe group of people who would make that place unsafe. And so that's why I'm here today, to make I'm sure you understand that there are many of us in this county who follow the rules, who do it respectfully and civilly, and would never do things that happen like on the 14th. And so if you choose to have another meeting, I don't know where that unsafe would come from. I've been in here for over a month and a half now, and I have witnessed all three of you being maligned, lied to, threatened, and it has never been through me or my colleagues who have been protesting.
You're correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Okay, I'm gonna go to online if there.
Gabrielle?
Gabrielle Gilbert, go ahead, please.
Yes, hi. I understand that the public meeting that Jake was going to, that there was a confusion about what was a private meeting set up and what became what a public meeting was. So what I'm asking is that the restart on the public meeting is that, Jake, we would like for you to make a commitment to come to us quarterly to the West End, to the Pioneer Center, or through Zoom, where you are on a quarterly schedule of meeting with your constituencies down here in the West End. And that is one of my requests. The other thing I want to talk about is you have online on the commissioner's website this strategic 10-year plan for economic development that you crafted. And nowhere in the plan is there a discussion about daycare and daycare opportunity and making that available. And I think that you have to amend that strategic 10-year plan by placing that in to that aspect in. You cannot have economic development. You cannot speak about, just housing and a lack of trained workers and how you're going to make the county viable economically if you do not have the component of daycare and childcare in that. And I think it's telling when that commission is predominantly men who are making those policy decisions, and that you literally omit childcare. And so I would really like to see that corrected. And then finally, on the 911 emergency calls, we are not, to my knowledge, they have not set up a new contract for Fish and Wildlife. And I believe that emergency 911 need to go into negotiations, and Fish and Wildlife need to come into negotiations with you, with 911 on getting those wildlife calls diverted to Fish and Wildlife and taking and them commanding that position of addressing wildlife conflict in the county. And I'd like for Jake to give some follow-up with that, however he needs to do that. So, and definitely for all of you commissioners, follow up on the childcare situation and why it's not seen in the strategic plan. And then finally, Lynn Mason is still waiting for an apology for the obscene gesture that was held in that chamber a few weeks back. And the women of the county would like to see that and hear that. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. I'm going to go back into chambers. Go ahead. If you both come up, they've asked to be able to do their public comment back to back.
Can we still pull our masks down?
You can.
Okay.
And I'm going to put 6 minutes on.
Okay,
I'll let you know when you're halfway through so you can switch.
great.
Go ahead.
Debbie Wagner and part of CEAS. This email was written by Commissioner Christopher, was done on a county email and sent to many citizens.
Many being how many?
It just says, I just said many citizens.
2.
Okay. It just never seems to end, no matter how many times I try to warn people of the kind of horse they are hitching their wagons to and the damage he is personally causing to the solar ordinance cause. The Board of Commissioners has had multiple reports, once again, that Mr. Wagner publicly verbally attacked Mochi Lindblad on the morning radio show the other day. This is dated the October 12th. No, I'm sorry, September 22nd. But this time he went too far by making racist comments in his attack. Here is what they all said. He said that she, Mochi Lindblad, was Chinese, like the company trying to install the solar farm, and that it is having the fox in the hen house. And something to effect that we should be hiring Americans because you can barely understand her because she doesn't speak English. Also statements of hire American and buy American. Mr. Wagner has now publicly shown himself to be a racist and a bigot. I will make sure the world knows this on our radio show tomorrow. And in releasing this to the press, Mr. Wagner, the founder and head of CEAS, is now on the record as being an untrustworthy racist and bigot. For the record, Mochi Lindblad is one of the kindest, smartest women I know. To the best of my knowledge, she isn't even Chinese, but comes from a neighboring country. But really, what difference does that make? I would take Mochi for a neighbor, friend, and American over Mr. Wagner any day of the week. We as a community deserve a full public apology for this attack on Mochi, and Mochi deserves far more than that. Just thought I would once again remind you of who you are hitching your wagon to, Dan C.
Clarification, one. There's two emails sent, that was one of them. They're not.
My name is Greg Wagner. I'm with CEAS.
Go ahead.
This is just another attack in a series of unprovoked, brazen, uncivilized attack on a citizen perpetrated by you. It is based on false, unsubstantiated, and hearsay information. This attack on me is defamation of my character, and the use of the words racist and bigot and untrustworthy or liable. These allegations are all false, and I have proof. You have harmed my reputation and caused distress and attempted to discredit CEAS. Will you issue a public statement retracting your false allegations? RCWs and WACs are state laws which apply to elected officials and are to be adhered to. I am asking the prosecuting attorney, Mr. Cannell, to review these laws and make a determination if you have violated them. Then take the appropriate action. Your conduct illustrates a pattern of inexcusable behavior and you show no remorse. This can no longer be tolerated. Therefore, I am asking for your resignation immediately. Thank you.
There's 6 minutes is up, I would like to rebuttal.
Does that conclude your comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the timer and their time is up. Go ahead, sir.
I gave you your time, now give me my time. In that email, I said members of the public and people in this building told this board it was you. Now, whether it was you or wasn't you, that's not for me to determine. I said in that email with quotes what they said. Not what I said, what they said. Now, whether it was you or not you, that's not my call. They said it was, you say it isn't, that's fine. But even if it isn't you, I deem you fully culpable for it because it's your actions, your attacks on this board and Miss Lindblad that are bringing about the hostile radio in general. So whether you believe that or not, that's your call. I will say, and I wasn't going to, but I will say, but your twisting of the facts and twisting of the truth to fit your personal narrative and your illegal actions of wiretapping phone calls with Mr. Walsh and then playing them for me until I have to tell you, don't, because I don't want any part of your illegal activity, is the reason I no longer support CEAS. Now, if you want to deny wiretapping phones, that's your choice, but I'm pretty sure you can find that in RCW too, sir.
Well, you're wrong. I can show you proof that I wasn't the person that said anything on the radio.
I never said, I said they
You
said
shouldn't even be
were.
putting out any information that you can't document, Dan. That's what you do all the time.
I'm gonna move us along.
Very hurtful.
We're still in citizen comment. I'm gonna go to online. Now, we'll do 2 online in a row to make up. So raise your hand, unmute yourself, get our attention. Not seeing anybody. Okay, so if there is no one online that wishes to provide public comment at this time. Okay, I'm going to come back to the room if there is somebody. Okay, go ahead. Please give us your name for the record,
Okay,
please.
Kathy Moko, Golden Elk. I just have a quick question, follow up from last week. A man asked about the fact that the Department of Transportation went out, all the men have left. And so it's getting to be winter, and do we have any plans to pick up the slack and plow the state highways?
I would say to my knowledge, at this point, we do not. There's no plan for
Is
that.
there any precedent for doing that? I don't think it's ever
No.
been done or does, and, yeah.
No, this is most unusual, but it's happened, and the only person at the DOT is the superintendent. All the men have left. They've lost their jobs and most likely will lose their retirements and all kinds of things.
Yes.
I was told by our public works director that 3 individuals are still there and 3 have been transferred from Benton to the Golden Dale shop.
That's kind of my interpretation of what's gonna happen is he's probably gonna, the governor, King, is probably going to transfer people from other areas to our areas, people that are, places that are 95% vaccinated, and transfer them out here at least temporary until they figure out what the hell's going on. But it's one of those things, like Dave said, it's out of our wheelhouse. They don't inform us. They don't keep us up to date. We could ask 9 million questions. They're not gonna give us the answer.
Yeah.
We're just as worried. I know I am. And I think it sucks, but,
I work on the piece of the pie that I actually have.
Right. Having worked there for a number of years, I know that the state and the county and then the city don't work well together, and they don't share. We tried to change that, but it's just been, quick example, they close 84, that diverts all the traffic to 14.
Right.
Now, it would be nice to call Bingen or the main office in Goldendale and say, we're doing that, but that didn't, that normally would not happen. So it's been kind of difficult. So, anyway.
So we've been dreading this day for a long time. WSP lost 127 employees in the state. We're seeing that in DOT. What I'm seeing on the articles is that the state is saying that over their entire force, they will continue to provide the services. The levels may not be at where they were, but they will do everything they can. And so that's what they're saying. The next few days will show what they can and cannot do at the state level, especially with the state patrol. And then I'm sure that the state's going to have to move people around when it comes to roads and everything and try to rehire and backfill. But we all know how hard it is to find drivers right now, or anybody with the CDL. Every one of those guys, I'm sure, can probably have a job in a week.
Yeah.
And do you think they're going to come back if they get another job? I mean, this is the things that we have to worry about at this time.
Okay, we are still in citizen comment. Thank you for your comments. I'm going to go back online and see if folks have changed their mind. I don't see any. Raise your hand, unmute yourself, *6 if you're on a phone. I'm not seeing anybody. So we'll come back in chambers if there's somebody that wishes to provide public comment.
I can respond to
Yes.
Gabrielle's This is a response to Ms. Gilbert, who asked that I do quarterly meetings. Ms. Gilbert, on the west end, I attend the community council meetings regularly, at least quarterly amongst them between City of White Salmon, Houston, BC, Trout Lake and such. If you'd like me just to host a quarterly town hall where people can come and talk and ask questions, I'd be happy to do that. In terms of childcare has been on the radar, and commissioners have been working on that for what, the last 15 or 20 years that you're well aware of. And that is one thing that we have always focused on. And I know many times when I worked in the Economic Development Natural Resources Department, childcare was always up there, and everybody was going to meetings on childcare. Our economic development specialist continues to go to meetings on childcare. So just so you know, just because it's not part of the economic development strategic plan does not mean that it is not on the radar and very high up the flagpole in terms of what we care about.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, it's something at our next Economic Development Council meeting, we, could see it just to add more. I don't know that it needs more, press or more. I think everybody recognizes that it's a critical issue around economic development. It doesn't do any good if we create jobs that people can't work at because they don't have any childcare available. And so we all know that, but if it needs higher visibility, then I guess that's something we could talk about.
I would agree. I think we all think that childcare is a major importance of the monthly childcare meetings to get moved to the first Wednesday of the month now, starting next month. But anyway, yeah, I think it all comes down to interpretations of childcare and having the money or the resources to do it. And that's just kind of where we're at with that.
Okay, we are still in citizen comment. No. I'll go back online.
Gabrielle's got her hand up again.
I'm actually, that's a set. I'm going to give everybody else a chance first, Miss Gilbert, and then because I've been.
We just had a couple
give everybody
people join,
seconds.
so you might want to.
Yes, so we are in citizen comment. So if you've just joined us, this is an opportunity to provide a public comment to the Board of Commissioners. If you wish to do so, raise your hand, unmute yourself. *6 if you're on a phone. I'm not seeing anybody. Wow, people are uncharacteristically quiet. Mr. Eldred, yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wish you would consider taking a second look at the problems. Is solar development is moving for the county. You guys have ignored every kind of safety item, every precaution that is involved in this. I mean, Cypress is not an upstanding company. There's a lady in New York, that Mrs. Boga, that went and had her proposed lease agreement looked at and spent thousands of dollars to have it researched, and it was full of loopholes and decisive language that could be interpreted 2 or 3 different ways. Feener, New York, Cypress promised them $70,000 a year for their city, and they paid them the minimum tax, $7,000 a year. So you're dealing with people that are professionals at writing contracts and leases that they can manipulate. They're one-sided. And do you think that they're going to treat you any different? Do you think this decommission thing that they're throwing at you means anything to them? I think you need to take a look. I don't know, maybe it's your guys' dream to see thousands of acres of black glass. Maybe that's something. And I can't believe that the rest of the people in this community think that that's going to be the most beautiful thing there is to see all this And every country, California, you look at California, who has more solar than California? If you look at the Ivanpah, I mean, what do you got? 100,000 acres or something of these panels, millions and millions of them. What have they got? They got blackouts. So now they're having to rebuild gas plants to take the place of the unsubstantial power that they're getting because they can't operate this way. I mean, so you're devastating thousands of acres of land for nothing because it's not going to be, you know, and why don't you guys lead by example? Why don't you use solar and wind power for the new building and take the gas out? If you think that's the way to go, why don't you just hook up to the grid with the wind energy and you got the solar and, you know, I mean, that's what people in Texas had when they froze to death. So I think it's just time that you take a second look at the solar and what road you're going down with it and who you're dealing with.
Thank you, Mr. Eldridge. I'm going to give folks a chance. I'd like an opportunity to respond, and I will try if I can. But I'm going to go back. Folks online, we still are in citizen comment.
Anybody new?
Anybody new or somebody changed their mind? Okay.
*6 if you're on the phone. We haven't had many people on the phone.
No, on the phone. No, use that. Okay, since there isn't, I'll take a minute. First off,
We have somebody,
Oh.
0796.
go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon. This is Lisa Evans from White Salmon. Just in consideration of the childcare and, you know, there's just has been a lot of jobs lost recently due to the mandates and everything. Can we not encourage more things in the private sector? You know, I really believe in entrepreneurs and people who love to take care of children, you know, having them start childcare businesses versus throwing that on the shoulders of the government. So I just want to throw that out there. You know, maybe you guys can brainstorm on ideas on how to support people in the community that want to start childcare businesses privately and run with that. I don't necessarily think that's your responsibility. That's not a county responsibility. So that's just my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Just a quickie, this is Commissioner Christopher. The Child Care Committee is mainly working on that exact thing and trying to get local small business type of help. It's the government overregulation that's killing it. But anyway, I won't encroach on anybody's time anymore.
Okay, thank you. Sevens, we're still in citizen comment. So anybody online who's been uncharacteristically
watching if you want to.
Okay, so Mr. Eldridge, and I will, yeah, if somebody pops up, please, because I'll defer my comments till we're done with citizen comment. But first off, on solar, I think you have the impression that I am some, you know, like I just think solar is the best thing there ever was. I'm not. I have said I am pro solar insofar as it is in the strategic plan, the economic plan that was referenced before, which I am charged with trying to implement that plan. That plan was not developed by me. It was developed by a whole group of people from across the whole county, stakeholders across the whole county. And they identified solar and renewables in general, solar and wind specifically, as a priority for development in Klickitat County. So, you know, my personal feelings are irrelevant to it. If I'm pro, against, whatever, it doesn't matter. My job is to try to implement that plan, and I am trying to implement that plan. You do keep making statements about the negative aspects of either Cypress Creek and I'm gonna put that over here for a minute. But as far as you are stating things as if they are facts, and I don't necessarily know that that is true. I'm not saying that you don't think they're facts.
You want me to send it to you?
Well, you can, but we can all find any fact we want on the internet right now. I could probably find facts that the earth is flat, and I could send those to you. That doesn't necessarily mean that's true. And I'm not trying to equate those to each other, I'm sorry. But it is, so it is the fact-finding part of a process as when there's actually an application. If Cypress Creek is a bad actor and they have a history of being a bad actor, that will come up and come out, or it should come out if they actually submit an application to build a project on Knight Road. If they do, I think that is relevant information that we should take an extra hard look at those as far as agreements between the county and Cypress Creek. As far as the lease between them and private citizens, that makes me uncomfortable to get into. It's like, it's not my job to look after individual landowners. I hope they get, we always tell people, get legal counsel, have folks look at things, because you could be being taken advantage of. But I do believe people need to be responsible for themselves when they're doing that. In their agreements that they're making, as far as for tax payments or decommissioning plans and stuff, then that is our job to really look at that. And if they have a history of not living up to their agreements, that should impact the kind of deal and what security we require.
Yeah, Lynn Mason, sir.
Okay.
I didn't want to stop here.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Okay. I still am going to go. We're out of time, but I am going to laugh because I used it. So Lynn Mason, go ahead.
Hello, thank you. I just want to make a comment on childcare. I worked in childcare for many years and actually was a consultant in childcare. And I have to say that a lot of the childcare programs that I helped get established were through agencies such as the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc., and big organizations like that. And since Klickitat County doesn't have those organizations, I do think it is the role of our local government to get involved with that. Childcare affects families, but it mostly affects women. I've run into a lot of women who have not re-entered the workforce because of the instability of children being in school, perhaps not being in school, having to come home. The school hours haven't changed in decades to suit working families. So childcare is essential. And whether that is our local government getting involved in talks or just helping bring that conversation to the table, it is very important. Women are half the population. They are, I believe that a lot of the lost workers we've had is due to women just having to pick up the pieces when children are at home and they're requiring a parent at home to educate them, someone to be there with them. And it's been a lot on the shoulders of women. So I think that's a conversation that needs to continue. I know that WAGAP has done some initiatives to help private childcare providers get licensed and set up in their home, but that conversation needs to continue. I know here in White Salmon, there is a huge demand for childcare, and there are very few providers, and it's just not being addressed. It's a bigger need than I even think that private providers can address. So that needs to be done on a bigger scale. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Mason.
I would say that might be something we can talk to Gina about when we talk about green energy tax, is to see if there's any chance whatsoever that the state can lighten up on its regulations if they're finally seeing the crisis that it's caused.
Okay, that will conclude our citizen comment period for today. I want to again thank everybody for their civil tone, as was suggested by Ms. Kelsey. I do appreciate that. It is possible to have discussions about really difficult things in a way that is not combative and gets everybody we can be passionate, we can even be angry, but we need to be so in a civil, respectful way. So I appreciate that. I'm going to move us on. This is a time we've set aside for public hearings, public meetings, and bid openings. Our first is a public hearing to consider approval of the vacation of short plat SPL 2006-5, which is located off Oak Ridge Road, Ridgeview and Kirbish Roads in the Houston vicinity. And I'm not going to read the parcels. I will leave that to Miss Lee. The applicants are SDS Company LLC. I'm assuming Denise, you are briefing us on that.
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So basically the background is the applicant is proposing to vacate SPL 2006-51 in its entirety. The covenants and road maintenance agreement filed with the short plat will also be vacated. The easement for Valley View Road will be removed in addition to the view easements on the old lots 2 and 3 and the 15-foot wide utility easement on the old lot 2. The applicant submitted an application on August 31st, 2021 to vacate SPL 2006-51. The property is zoned resource lands. Properties surrounding the subject property are also zoned resource lands. That concludes my intro.
Okay, thank you. Now this is a public hearing, so I will now open the public hearing to take public testimony for or against the proposal. Is there anyone wishing to provide public testimony? If you are online.
I have a clarification question.
Yes.
So it says SPL 2026.51. I'm assuming that's year 2026 and it's the 51 short plat, 51st short plat. Is that correct? Is that how it's read?
Generally. Yeah. The first is, yeah, that's the year it was done, and then the number from the first
Do they
one.
have a timeline on when once they get a short plat, that they have to do something with it, or does it last forever?
They have to, if they get final approval, it has to be, actually, I'm going to stop us because I want to stick with the procedure. So again, I'm going to ask one more time because there'll be plenty of time for questions. Is there anyone that wishes to provide public comment? Raise your hand. *6, or if you were in chambers, raise your hand. Okay, I'm not. Okay. Now would be an opportunity to ask questions if you wish.
Say I missed it by 3 seconds. I should have just waited. So yeah, I guess my question on the short platting is, when they do a short plat, is it good forever unless they want to turn it back into the original parcel? And that's kind of what we're doing here, right?
Right. Once it is, and I'll leave this to Denise, but once it's executed, it's forever. Unless, that's why it has to come back to the board if you want to vacate it.
Put it back to the
Put it
original.
back together. And in this case, and that was going to be one of my questions, I'm assuming it wasn't, I didn't see it in there. SDS LLC still owns all of the lots that were created in the short plat.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They created the lots and they did not sell them, and they're just wanting to vacate that short plat and turn it back into what it was before they did the short plat. And that's what this vacation is about.
It's unusual. It doesn't.
Right, I'm just trying to figure out, that's how unusual, why I'm trying to, I mean, so if they put a road through there, do they have to like take the road out, or is they just?
No, they can leave the
one
road.
property just for the road in?
It's the road.
Okay.
They did install a road as part of the short plat, but that easement for the road and all the view easements and utility easements and covenants and road maintenance agreements will all be vacated. So the road will exist, obviously, still. It won't be, there won't be any lots. It won't go anywhere.
Right, and that's kind of why I'm asking the questions. I've never seen one of these vacated, so it's a learning experience for me, so.
That's very unusual. I'm not familiar with any we've ever done before, because usually once it's done, it's done.
Yeah, and if you were gonna sell it, just sell all the parcels.
Yeah, or even if you sell one, you're kind of like, then you can't go backwards from there.
Right.
It's
Oh,
set.
yeah.
And because all the parties would, yeah.
But once a plat is final and you folks sign it, then it's recorded and then it's a done deal after that.
Yeah.
And in this
Unless
case,
it's in the
you know
scenic
that-
area, if Christina's listening.
But they pay property taxes for the last 15
On
years
individual
on
parcels,
individual
yeah.
parcels.
Now, I
Okay,
apologize. I didn't read all the parcel numbers and I can certainly do that.
no, I think we can dispense with that parcel. I mean, the short plat is the,
SPL 2000.
yes, that has all that encoded within it, so.
Yeah.
Okay, final call for public comment. Hearing none, I will now close the public hearing to public comment, deliberation if needed, or motion if we're ready. Which I think there was language in here
I'll let Jake do that one.
Yes, on the procedure.
under the procedure, just a minute.
Under what?
It's in here. I saw it. There it is.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion based on the findings and conclusions discussed today. I move that the request to vacate SPL 2006-51 located off of Oak Ridge County Road in the vicinity of Houston, Washington be approved.
I would second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye, motion passes. Okay, thanks Denise.
Thank you, board.
Unusual. Yeah, really, you've been paying taxes for 15 years on individual
While
parcels.
we have some time, can we do the consent?
Yes.
agenda?
But wouldn't they all be in forest management still, even though they're smaller parcels?
No, once you pull it out and it's a small parcel, you're.
That's
paying-
rude.
you're-
Because there's a 80 minimums or something. on
No,
that.
it's 20.
Is it?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with 7 items.
I would second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
On pay estimates.
Yeah, might as well. We're
Mr.
running
Chairman, I
over.
make a motion that we approve pay estimate number 6 to Lee Contractors LLC in the amount of $145,471.30, which excludes retainage in the amount of $7,273.57 and includes sales tax in the amount of $10,910.35 for the total payment amount of $149,108.08 for the Klickitat County Courthouse Entrance Improvement Project C06821.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a
Just
second.
wondered what Lee was doing.
Any discussion? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on paying that bill? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we pay estimate number 4 to Grade Works LLC in the amount of $450,650.03, excluding $22,532.50 in retainage, for a total payment amount of $428,117.53 for the Old Mountain Road project.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. This is on pay estimate number 4 to Grade Works for the Old Mountain Road project. Any discussion on that one? Are they doing okay?
Very nice.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion
Do
passes.
you have to cross that one to get home? Or is it next to you? Not, you don't. have
Well,
to
I go
drive.
about a mile long. Well, I go all the way on Old Mountain. and then
Mr.
the
Chairman, I
construction
make a
part
motion
is,
to
a
approve
mile.
pay estimate number 1 to Interstate Concrete and Asphalt Company DBA in the amount of $559,616.53 for the Roosevelt Grade Overlay Project.
Second motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. This is for pay estimate number 1 to Interstate Concrete and Asphalt for the Roosevelt Grade project. Any discussion on that one? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to pay estimate number 18 to Kirby Naval Help Construction Company in the amount of $668,151.21, which excludes retainage in the amount of $33,279.67 and includes sales tax in the amount of $50,111.34 for a total payment amount of $684,982.88 for the county services of building project contract number C03120.
I would second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. This is for pay estimate number 18 to Kirby Naval Help Construction. This is on the new county services building. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I would make a
Mine's
motion that we pay the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $2,031,985.88. And the payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $0 for the date ending October 18th, 2021.
Second that motion.
okay, I have a motion and a second to pay the bills. Any discussion on those? Assuming we have it, so.
I was gonna say, is there any money left?
Not any money left after what we just spent. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. And if not, I expect to hear from the treasurer momentarily.
We want to see what-
Yeah,
Casey, what can we do for you?
I thought if I hovered long enough, but
Yeah,
Just have to wave your hand. a little bit.
yeah.
there is a recent vacancy in the assessor's office for a clerical admin one position. And that she is requesting verbal to advertise for that, to refill the position. It is a current position, it is funded, it is within our budget, it is continued to be within her budget, and it is not a new position.
Full-time position too.
Full-time clerical admin one position, she's requesting to advertise steps 1 through 3. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, next time just *6 yourself and.
Just wave your hand, we'll sneak in.
All right, it is now 1:45. This time we have scheduled for a update, our quarterly update, Columbia River Gorge Commission Executive Director and our county appointee, Ms. Sandra Clark. I think hopefully they're both online. We will, let me look. Oh, I see Christina.
Yes, good afternoon, commissioners.
Yes, thank you. Is Sandra, are you joining us?
Unless she's on a phone number.
If you're on a phone, it's *6. I say *698. What is that? Isn't that, find out who called you? Yeah. Good Lord, that's an ancient technology. Does that even still work?
Yes, instead of *67, the block.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see her.
Oh, she's there.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully Sandra will join us. If not, you're it, Christina. So
I'm it.
You get to.
Okay. Good afternoon, commissioners. For the record, Christina Volniakovsky, Executive Director of the Columbia River Gorge Commission. And I have just a really brief update for you today. We have been working diligently on getting the Gorge 2020 management plan into an ordinance format for Klickitat County. All of the other 5 counties are also working on their ordinances to implement the new management plan. So there's 270 days from the time of secretarial concurrence to get the ordinance done. So everybody's on pretty much the same time schedule. And we have been meeting with the county planning directors and making sure that all the new language is clarified so that they can easily translate it into their own ordinance. For Klickitat County, of course, our staff is responsible for doing that. And we have it already in draft. We've presented the draft to the Gorge Commission, and they approved starting the rulemaking process. So we sent in the draft ordinance to the Washington State Register. And we also have the draft ordinance on our website under the rulemaking tab. And so we will then hold a hearing in December at our December commission meeting for public comment, and then hopefully it'll be smooth to adopt it. Once it gets adopted, then it goes to the Secretary of Agriculture for concurrence, just like we did with the general management plan. So each of the other 5 counties are on the same schedule, and by mid-December, they will be approving their ordinance for their county, and we will be sending all those to the Secretary for concurrence as well. So it looks like implementation will be started sometime probably in April or May of next year. So since this is all done, I'm going to do my my usual pitch that the work is complete and we would love to have you adopt it as well, so that you would have the opportunity to implement the ordinance for Klickitat County, and that would make you also eligible for the Washington Investment Board funds for loans and grants. Are there any questions?
Thank you for that generous offer. I suspect we'll get back to you on that.
I always want to ask, because at this point it's done. It's all pretty much completed in December, and then, you know, it'd be pretty easy for the Klickitat County Commissioners to adopt it. So it's something for you to discuss at some point.
Thank you. Actually, I would welcome that discussion, because this is, you know, this board has not had that conversation. And so if we
It probably should at some point.
And we probably should, just so
Just
that
to be on the record about it.
on the record on it. And I think that is, I don't want to make
And I
any
might have
assumptions.
some questions.
Yeah. So we will put some time on our agenda to have a discussion about it.
Okay, well, that would be great. So once it's adopted, maybe sometime next spring, we might be able to spend a little extra time to talk about, you know, what that would mean. So we've had these discussions with the other counties, and, you know, sometimes the counties get a little frustrated by this, as you can imagine, but, you know, we haven't had any problems with any of the other 5 counties in this adoption process through the new ordinance. So we would just welcome a discussion. Since I've been here 6.5 years, we really haven't talked about it, but we were all in the middle of the master plan review process and trying to do business as usual with Klickitat County permitting. So it really hasn't come up since I've been here, but I think it would be really good just to have an open discussion about it.
Okay.
So the only other thing I wanted to bring up is that one of the new aspects of the ordinance is that we are going to allow short-term rentals in the National Scenic Area. They have not been allowed to date. You could have short-term rentals outside the National Scenic Area as per county regulations, but not inside the National Scenic Area. So several of the other counties, sorry. Several of the other counties have their own regulations about it. And so one of the things that we did when we were looking at this, it came up in public comment that, you know, people definitely wanted to have this as an economic opportunity for being able to rent out their homes, at least for a percentage of the year. And so in Hood River County, they have pretty similar regulations where it has to be the primary residence or the permanent residence of the homeowner. And that's the basic criteria. And then there are a certain number of room nights that are allowed. So it's really supposed to be subordinate to the actual use of the home, because the actual use of the home is the primary residence of the family. It cannot be used for second homes. And each of the different counties are looking at the regulations of the National Scenic Area and trying to figure out how they're going to be permitting it. So we're trying to be as consistent as we can in each county. Wasco County itself did not have any kind of short-term rental rules or permitting process, but they are thinking about it and are developing it. And then I know with Klickitat County, it's pretty much the same thing. Skamania County has already, outside the scenic area, adopted a process for permitting short-term rentals. And so we're working with them to try to sync things up as well. But in Klickitat County, it's a little bit different because we will have this new rule. And what it says is that you can do a short-term rental for up to 90 nights. And it has to be the primary residence of the homeowner. But the homeowner does not necessarily have to be physically present at the time of the rental. So it is going to require a permitting process. We would like to have it be consistent with what you are doing in the rest of Klickitat County. At least the permit itself should be similar. I've reached out to Mochi as the planning director, and we are scheduled to talk about this in December to see how we can manage it. Because in the other counties, they can charge a fee, and then any of the costs or the rental rate also includes county tax and certain other fees. So I'm not all that familiar with it yet, since we haven't had an opportunity to do a deep dive into it. But I wanted to bring this up to you because we can't collect any fees and we can't collect county taxes on anything that we're permitting. So we might need to think creatively about how to make this work in the National Scenic Area, and hopefully have some kind of a consistent approach with the rest of Klickitat County as well. So I would really enjoy having an opportunity to ask you if you have had these discussions at the county commission level, and whether there is any movement in being able to permit short-term rentals in the rest of the county.
I have a quickie question. How does that work if our county doesn't allow short-term rentals? Can the Gorge Commission do them anyway?
Yeah, they would override us
In that area?
in that area. Yes, sir.
Christina, I have a few questions. This is Commissioner Anderson. Okay, number one, have you looked to see what portion of Klickitat County is actually eligible under your new rules for the short-term rental ordinances, as you set it aside only in certain zoning designations? And most of those zoning designations we don't even have in Klickitat County.
That's a good point. I'll look into that.
Okay.
We haven't even started examining this yet. We just have the language in the ordinance, but we don't even know how many places might actually be eligible for it, because it is in specific zones.
Correct. And from what I've seen, the zones that you had that you allowed it are not primarily in Klickitat County. It's more in certain sections of Underwood and a few other places that you actually allow it. Secondly, what will you do about the short-term rentals that, as you say, have not been allowed, but have actually been in operation for the last 8 to 10 years in some instances that people have been doing it? Are you going to be sending cease and desist letters? What is the Gorge Commission's plan in those instances?
Also an excellent question. We don't have any way of knowing where those are, other than starting to monitor Airbnb and VRBO sites. We have not done that so far because, well, number one, it's a capacity issue, but number two, they're just not allowed. And so unless someone has filed a complaint with us, we wouldn't have known that they're existing. But in this case, once we do start a monitoring program for short-term rentals, then a permitting process, then anything that shows up that was not permitted before is going to have to cease their operations until they get a permit.
If they can get a permit, correct?
Well, they can, yeah, I mean, they will have to meet the criteria. Number one, it has to be in the right zone and land use zone. And then number two, it has to be the primary residence. So if somebody has a rental home out here that they're using only for vacation rentals, that won't be allowed.
So in essence, if you do your homework, you may find that there may not be any short-term rentals allowed within Klickitat County based on the zoning designations that you chose, that without apparently doing your due diligence on figuring out what they currently are by looking at Airbnb and the other platforms before you guys chose to make your decisions on the zoning designations in the first place. So it may be, what I'm saying is, it may be a moot point for Klickitat County, other than the fact that we've been ascertaining the transient tax funds from some of these properties for the last 10 or 15 years.
Right.
And now you're saying that they're no longer. So if you could do a dive to figure out which ones, and it's pretty easy to look on VRBO and Airbnb, so that you can get back to us with how much our transient tax and lodging tax is going to go down based on how many of these are now illegal that have been paying taxes for the last 10 years. That would be great for the county so that we can plan and permit.
I understand that, but it's really difficult to figure out the answer to that question when we haven't been monitoring it because it has not been allowed. If it's been going on, it's not something that we've been tracking because we just haven't allowed it. So I'm not sure if it's my responsibility to figure out how many taxes you will lose because of this.
So have you shut down Airbnbs throughout the Gorge Scenic area previously to this? Because I'm sure some have been turned into you.
We have never had, well, in Klickitat County, we have not had any complaints. And in the other counties, none of the planning directors have, since they haven't been allowed, they haven't been monitoring them. And they've not received complaints about them.
There's never been a complaint about a single Airbnb within the Gorge Scenic area. Wow.
Well, to my knowledge, I will qualify it to say to my knowledge, but as we discussed all this with county planners, there was not, problems were not really raised about it. The only monitoring issue that will be perhaps challenging will be the 90-room nights.
What is your plan for that?
Well, they have to register, on their, they have to have a permit for 90 nights, and then there are revenues that have to be collected for those. So, like I said, there is going to be monitoring of those rentals.
If I can, Christina, are you planning on this process? And in this case, it will be you in Klickitat County, at least for the foreseeable future, that will be setting up the.
That's right.
So you will have to, I assume they'll have to, I've looked at all the draft language as far as in the management plan update, where they're going to have to provide a report, I guess, annually that, kind of certifies their 90 that they didn't exceed 90 room nights with some data to support that.
Yeah. We don't want to make it overly cumbersome, but, the whole idea is that these are subordinate to the residential use of the house. So
this is a bigger question, because I guess I could have followed the discussion. I'm just curious from the scenic area, the management plan updates point of view, what were the impacts that the commission was trying to mitigate by, what was the problem that you were trying to fix by limiting the number of, to 90 days versus, more than 90 days? Because, frankly, I understand that if your point is this is a subordinate use, I'm not exactly sure why you care if it's a subordinate use or not. The impact both scenically and, on, the neighborhood is the same to me. It would appear if it's somebody that's, if it's, I'm the one living in the house or I'm having somebody else live in the house, but I'm just curious, what drove the discussion at the commission level to kind of settle on that 90 days as the magic number?
I think with Hood River County, they also have that. And again, the driving force is that it is not the primary use of the house. It is a residence, with a family that lives there. And so in some cases, the temporary nature of, the rentals, it can be disruptive. And so a lot of people from public comments, and this isn't just here, this is everywhere, including, all communities that are dealing with the short-term rentals. They want to make sure that, number one, there's longer-term rentals that are available that aren't being turned into short-term rentals because of the housing issue. And number two, that they want, people are living as families in these communities, and they just don't always want to have, loads of different tourists coming through. I think that they did want to allow some short-term rentals, though, because they feel that that is an economic opportunity for the homeowners to get some additional money, like when they're traveling and visiting other places and being tourists, that they want to, you know, be able to earn a little bit of money by renting out their homes. But it's supposed to be a subordinate use. It's not supposed to be, you know, a full-time income generator. So that's why they limited the number of nights and then made sure that it's the primary residence.
Thank you.
So I would just like to ask, is there going to be any way like what Hood River County did, or the city of Hood River and Hood River County, because they didn't have regulations in place when this began, they had a kind of a grandfathering clause in place for those people that are currently doing it, and they may not fit into your specific zones that you decided, which I can't find any records on why you chose certain zones. But that's going to have a huge financial impact on families that are currently living in Klickitat County, that, you know, they have to sublease a portion of their property out in order to make the payments on the properties. Otherwise, you know, that's a difficult situation. And I've heard from a lot of constituents that are very upset. So I'm trying to understand what people have as a potential recourse to continue living where they currently live if you're going to unilaterally, you know, remove their ability to make income off of those parcels.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective, but this doesn't impact long-term rentals at all. So if somebody is subleasing a home and they need it for longer than 90 days, the homeowner can rent that out for a longer term. This impacts the homeowner in terms of having short-term rentals for up to 90 days a year.
I think the problem is going to be the zoning.
Well, the zoning is not something that we had any control over. The zoning is the zoning.
No,
And-
you chose which zones you will allow it in, rather than saying it's in all zones. You're saying that there are zones that we are not going to allow any short-term rentals in. And one of those is the ag zone, I believe, which, if I'm correct, that then says that, you know, you have no ability to bring in additional revenue for your small farm, that you were barely able to make it without this. And that's difficult for me to fathom your reason and rationale for choosing zones like a 5-acre zone. You allow it in, but the ag zone for the small hobby farms or small farms, it's not allowed. I'm trying to understand if there's a way that the people who have been doing this can continue to, or they're going to lose their ability to live on their property because they just can't make a pencil otherwise.
Well, I'd be happy to, if you would like to give me some specific questions, I can circle back and get the answers to you to show you what the thinking is. I can go back to the record and describe it. But, you know, the land uses that we've had in terms of the short-term rentals, those are the ones that the commission chose. So I'm happy to provide you more information in the next update after the ordinance is approved.
How would that work? Another clarification question. How would that work if a short-term rental that was on a incorrectly zoned according to the Gorge Commission property, and the Gorge Commission sent them a cease and desist and they said no? What would be the consequences to that?
Well, I'm really hoping that we don't get to that situation, because then that would require some kind of a compliance and enforcement action.
Yeah, they have it would be the commission, would they have enforcement
The
authority?
Gorge Commission's code compliance officer?
They can issue fines and yes,
In Klickitat County.
in Klickitat County, yes, they can. They may have authority outside of Klickitat County, I'm not sure. I guess if you got, anyway, we're wandering off as far as.
No, that's.
We know they do in Klickitat County, and that's all I care about at this point. That's us.
I don't have any Gorge Commission land in my district.
I have almost all of it. So, I'm well versed in. It's, you know, and this is just a general question, and it's not, I don't want to throw rocks at the commission, but it is, you know, when you're, you know, short-term rentals is just one issue, one item of that I think, sometimes you're trying to make something seem like we have, acknowledged the economic development potential of things. And I'm thinking of short-term rentals, I'm thinking of commercial events, different things that there is an economic development that we can point to those, but you end up in a point where from a practical standpoint, you end up with it's just not practical. I've looked pretty extensively through the commercial event section, on the changes that were made or proposed that will be adopted, in the updates. And, there's a reason why I am unaware of a single, and you can correct me if you're wrong, at least in Klickitat County, of a winery or anybody that actually has a permit to do commercial events, because by the time you have the requirements to be able to do it, you would lose money actually putting on a commercial event if you complied with all of that. And so it looks like, well, gee, look, we changed this. You can have commercial events at wineries, at bed and breakfast, you can do all this stuff, but in reality, none of those businesses are actually doing those. And so from a practical, again, I understand you're trying to be responsive, but when you get through the whole process, it's from a practical standpoint, it's not responsive. And I suspect we're going to see much of the same thing with short-term rentals, is that for the few folks that really are only interested in it as some supplemental income for them when they're traveling, they're spending their summers in Europe and they want to rent out their house, it will work fine for them. But for folks that were kind of relying on it as supplemental income to support either their farm operation or other small business, it's not really going to work out for them. And again, I'm not chucking rocks at the commission or you. It's just sometimes there is a disconnect between the actual impacts, the economic impacts, and the level of requirements.
Well, there's an ideology difference there.
I don't expect a comment back, Christina.
Yeah, no.
I'm just venting. It's okay.
Fine.
It's okay.
I'll give him his little squish stress ball.
Yeah,
He'll
it's
be
okay.
okay.
No, we have something else to talk about for that. But
Yeah, so I'll circle back with Mochi about this in December, and we'll get you a update with some of the questions that you've posed today.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, I have something, and I am reluctant to even bring it up, but now I've said it, so now I have to. And actually, it will likely be more just that we can have I guess a private conversation. I'm a little distressed at the commission's. Again, I'm getting it secondhand, but I think it's fairly accurate. The additional economic development dollars that were in the federal appropriation, the $2 million that USDA purposefully, because I worked on it, did not put the scenic area requirements to that money. And I know there's been pushback on the part of both, I will say the traditional Washington folks that get the money, county that happens to lie to the west of us. And as far as an argument that Klickitat County should be ineligible for those dollars, just as we are for the other economic development dollars that are tied to the scenic area. And that is not our understanding. That was not our understanding when we advocated for this funding with USDA through the federal appropriation. And it's really disappointing that this is yet again an opportunity to kind of try to have a tool, a lever with with those dollars. So I think that's a difference of opinion
So that isn't getting split now?
Well, we don't, that's not as my understanding, that is not the commission's perspective on this.
We should have a court say.
So I think we need to have a conversation about that. So.
Okay.
And I believe you think it should be tied to scenic area stuff, and that's fine. You can have your position, but it's like if USDA did not put those terms in these dollars, then I just don't think it is, and I think it will change the conversation between Oregon and Washington because the MCED, which I'm on that board, and we had this discussion about this, and that was part of the reason why the split between Washington and Oregon was there's 2 million, 1 million will be spent in Oregon and 1 million will be spent in Washington. Well, if the 1 million in Oregon is split between multiple counties and it ends up being the 1 million in Washington can only go to one county, again, that unnamed county to the west of us, that does not, if I was an Oregon county, I would be a little miffed about that. And so.
Well, I have to say on the record, I will give you my interpretation.
Okay.
And then we can have a further discussion on it. But all along, the delegation for Oregon and Washington, as they were pursuing this additional appropriation, have always said that it was part of meeting the federal promise of the National Scenic Area Act. They've always said that. And when they were successful in getting this funding, they always said, and even Senator Merkley the other day during a press conference said that it was fulfilling the federal promise of the National Scenic Area Act. And when you look at the National Scenic Area Act, it specifically says that the funding is for these loans and grants that are then certified by the Gorge Commission as meeting the purposes of the act. And so that's what we've been doing. And then it also very explicitly said that if you haven't adopted the ordinance, then if a county doesn't adopt the ordinance, then they're not eligible for that. So the Gorge Commission's position is that, the National Scenic Area Act is federal law. The USDA Rural Development Program is a federal program. The agreement says that, MCED has to follow all federal, state, and local laws and rules to enact this. So I don't know how this is all going to shake out, but I'm happy to talk about it further. I've had several discussions on this. I have read the scope of work. I've read everything I can possibly read about this, and my conclusion does not change that their intent was that it fulfills the $2 million left over from the $10 million authorization of the National Scenic Area Act. It's just going through a different federal agency as opposed to the Forest Service. It's going through rural development. So that's our official position, and how this plays out with MCED, I'm not really sure, because in the end, it's their grant with USDA.
Okay, I'm just saying that, I'm just putting you on record. This is a big issue for us that we're in. You can, the commitment, which, it's fine. It's just yet another, we don't like being I can tell you, at least for me, the chance to have access to $1 million of economic development dollars is it's not much of a prod for me. And it has not been, Klickitat County has done just fine without access to the dollars.
Well, it will only be half, wouldn't it? So
So-
we'd have to split with grant.
Well, no, it would be, we would submit projects and maybe we would get some and maybe we wouldn't, but it's, we certainly administer all kinds of federal grants that come to us and for economic development that are not tied to the scenic area. And so, that's fine, but I will just say it is going to cause some tension between Klickitat County and the rest of its MCED partners, because we did advocate for these dollars with that understanding, because that's how it was presented to us all along. And so, and I'm not saying the appropriation happened because Klickitat County advocated for it. I'm not so arrogant to think that our advocacy made a difference one way or the other. But it's just like it feels like bait and switch to us, and we're not real pleased about that. But
Well, I understand that position, Commissioner, and we advocated for it too. Since I've been here, I've been advocating for that money. And I did also write a support letter with the understanding that it would be, even though it's coming through USDA Rural Development Fund, that the operations would be the same as with the other funding through the revolving loan fund through the Forest Service. So it was a huge surprise to us when it wasn't going to follow the same National Scenic Area federal law that we have been enacting. So anyway, we can talk a little bit more about that if you'd like, depending on how things move forward.
No, anything else?
No, I'm
No?
good.
No, I think we're good.
Okay, well, I'll look forward to our next quarterly update and see how things move forward.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay,
All
thank you,
right, thank you.
commissioners. All right, bye.
Bye. We are gonna move on.
I don't know what's worse, following citizen comment with me or following that with Dave. No.
You knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming, so.
When did you first hear that we weren't gonna get a?
I had heard rumblings a couple weeks ago. And then
But I hadn't
it was
heard
followed
that.
up. No, and I was hopeful that it was just somebody agitating so that they could have 100% of the Washington money, which totally makes sense. I would totally do that too. So I'll just remember, but I will remember.
Our partners to the west.
Yes. So if you see a bus coming by,
They definitely need $1 million.
I know, but
Whatever, we
still.
need money too.
Yeah. Hi, Sharon. We're gonna continue this really easy topic. with
I'm
you.
gonna be stepping out at 2:30.
Oh, so we might need to come up with an answer
Before 2:30, so. So we will continue our conversation. Go
How
ahead.
much of I guess gonna say, if you want more questions from her, with more time for me to think on this and sleep on this and what have you. I guess the biggest part of it for me is no matter how much I want to help, I don't want to set a precedent. So, because that could carry on for years and decades. So on this matter, I'm gonna have to be a no.
And so in terms of the material that I emailed out, and what I was discussing about the funds that we received that were specific, and they are very specific to those positions, that particular position, and the funding we received for the service that are provided for the home care aides. And with the management bulletins too, that has, that increase has to be applied directly to wages and benefits. And so in the past, we have done like a wage increase, but knowing where we were financially and hoping to not be in the position of ending the program, but realizing that's not the case and that we are ending the program. Those funds are something that we got really in addition to be applied specifically to those staff. Not like it's, oh, we got, and we have a lot of other COVID money that we've received specific to like nutrition services and things like this, but this one is specifically tied to caregivers and their benefits. And I feel like with eliminating, again, 4 full-time, luckily it's not 15, which could have been at previous points in time, or 20 staff, that at least feeling like with the dedication they've had from 6 to 13 years of service, to be in a position where they cannot get benefits at a new employer for 90 days. So they've got the stress of, oh, now I have to go and see if I can get some insurance on the exchange, have the money to pay for that when they're not in a high paid position as it is. Feeling like if we could preserve, again, provide them with the severance with those funds that were specifically designated for home care wages and benefits, home care workers, wages and benefits, they could COBRA their insurance until they're eligible through their new employers. And
Right, my worry is same regard, somebody that might work in this building that doesn't qualify for a medical or religious exemption then asked, because of this, they want some of those COVID dollars that were given to the county to pay for theirs. Severance or medical, and that's the precedent I'm worried about. Is it wouldn't be landfill dollars, it would be COVID dollars that would pay for these other, that's the precedent that I'm worried about, so.
And I guess I view it as different. It's not like, okay, this is, the county got a couple million in
Well, I
COVID, you
get it.
decide what to do. This
I
is
would just have
very,
to explain it to each one of them.
very clearly,
And I don't know that
and
they
I'd
get
be
it.
happy. to
Right,
do
I
that.
would play the devil's advocate in that I think this is a different circumstance where the dollars that came in were tagged specifically to those exact positions.
Mhm.
Because I hadn't really thought about somebody making that, because that had me like, oh, yeah, because it was actually going to be easier for me to actually advocate to do
I
this,
said, I
not
was-
because
I
it's
was
not the.
originally a yes because of those funds, but yeah. I get it.
But I do worry about the precedent, but I'm not that concerned about it because again, these dollars that came in were specific to those positions. And honestly, if we had the same situation in another department that got extra grant dollars to fund a thing that we didn't expend on that. And then we had to provide, we were going to do COBRA with that money. I would be okay with that. I'm not aware of that happening anywhere else. I think this is unique to this.
Right.
Because we got
And-
general
And
COVID
even,
dollars.
and even if we look at precedent within my department with these particular positions, typically I can pull historically over the years that we've had these positions and when we had management bulletins that specifically addressed pay and benefit increases, we've done actual pay hourly rate increases for those specific employees, separate from everybody else. They've been treated, they have a whole separate line item.
So-
Similar to how the union negotiated.
Clarification for me. You're stating, if I'm getting it right, that these dollars are sitting in account to pay these workers, that these dollars can't be used for something else. And if we don't pay these workers, we have to give them back to the state. Give that one back to the state.
No, what it is that we were provided the money, the extra money for their wages and benefits. Because our benefits cost more than the state reimburses us. Where the money went is the $19,000 was just $19,000 that it lowered our level of subsidy to those individuals.
Right.
So in a sense, it's sitting in fund balance. It should, although it's probably already been accounted for as far as in your fund balance at the end, as far as, all the money's going in, money's going out. And so there's $19,000 that we had not planned on receiving that we did. And so we just paid the benefits and pocketed the 19, which is, again, we're allowed to do that because we spent more than $19,000.
That's
on
my
those
point.
benefits.
And we're able to
So it's
show
already
that it was
money used,
applied
this
to
would
wages
be
and benefits.
more. Because we could, just for the same regard, use that money to pay ourselves back for paying the benefits.
Yes, and that's what that's
And that's what I'm
unless
saying.
we do
I
something
don't
different.
classify them as grants.
Right.
So.
Did we give a temporary COVID rate increase per hour to the employees?
No,
We have not.
that applied, that's been used to, so when I was showing what we are actually paying in insurance per month, what the rate of the unit rate that's applied to that, and then the difference, and then what we got in the additional revenue then made us whole.
Right.
So,
So for a short, brief, shining moment, the state was actually providing enough
Right.
reimbursement for the benefit to actually pay for the benefit that
Right.
we were providing.
Almost, or?
Almost.
I was gonna say, it still
In a
says negative.
nutshell, if this money is sitting in fund balance, and on next year's budget, they need
we
Right.
will,
a certain dollar of landfill funds, they would need less funds
Right.
if this was sitting in fund balance.
Yes.
Chairman, for me, I have to look at this as that this is complicated for us to understand. The next person that comes through a situation like this isn't gonna care where the money comes from. They're just gonna be, you gave severance package to this group and you should be giving it to me. I'm looking at, all of the state transportation workers who just got let go. who are not getting a severance package, who do not have jobs lined up for the next 3 months, who are sitting in a really ugly situation. And there's no medical, and they don't even qualify for unemployment. At least these people, if they don't get a job, they would qualify for unemployment, correct? Whereas all the others don't. So these people have a significant advantage over what everybody else is dealing with.
Except they're not choosing to be, I mean, they've got vaccinated, so, but
They got
that's not gonna
fired.
matter.
They're being fired. I mean, let's call it what it is. We are eliminating the position. So we're down.
Yeah, and we're talking about one of the lower wage positions that does not have kind of a bit more of the protection to be able to carry over.
Yes, sir.
Were you referring to our people or the state when you said they got fired?
No, I clarified that they were not fired, but the position it was eliminated. I mean, it's in a default, I mean, it's the same thing. And I know in the HR world, being fired as a specific thing, like that's a disciplinary. I know the lawyers are listening right now. Nobody was fired. Nobody was fired for cause. The position was eliminated. The job's not there anymore on January. They were transitioned. But they will be eligible for unemployment because of that. If they quit, then they're not.
Right. So the timing's really good with the whole vaccine thing, because otherwise it probably would have been.
Here, I'll give it to
This
Sharon.
was a very difficult
It
decision
was.
for me. But when I gotta come in on Thursday and make hard choices, I guess today was my first one.
So my understanding is.
I think it's different. I think I would do the COBRA. But it takes two, so I guess it's no.
Okay. So the other, I guess, piece though that there was discussion on was how we're addressing keeping, in terms of our end date. There was discussion on, because our license and notice was given to end, the home care services as of December 31st. And so obviously people choose to leave before then, but in terms of the drop dead date of the 31st, what do we do in the interim when we have, if we lose clients because they are going to be transitioning potentially to a new provider as they come available, because there's some that don't have providers yet available. But then we have the employees that are on the payroll that are supposed to meet 30, they have to meet 30 hours a week, typically to maintain benefits and through that end date. So how do we address that in terms of, that their end date is the 31st unless they choose to depart before then? But how do we address those hours piece? I mean, do we put them to work in, have
Can
them
you
doing
do that?
office
Can
stuff
you-
and
I mean,
that
I guess
too,
that's
but
my
I mean, we're not
question.
gonna be
Is it
able to
possible?
bill for that. I
Right.
mean, in home care, we won't get
Right, you're not gonna get reimbursed.
reimbursements, so it would be coming out, so then it could tap into, I guess, some of that fund balance that would be created from not subsidizing the others. So I just have to figure out, I have to talk to these people and tell them how this is playing out, so.
So you don't know, you haven't heard from any of them when they're leaving or if they're planning on staying the whole time or
Like
they're
some-
just leaving when they don't have the hours to work anymore.
Well, so that's what I'm asking in terms of how do we address that? Because it's not, I mean, so we have some people like the part-timers and folks that they're gonna transition to another employer process. But the full-time positions in terms of, they want to keep full-time as long as they can into this. Obviously, they will be looking for other work as well, so they could end up getting hired and maybe depart sooner, and then we would shuffle some clients that way. But we're also talking about two ends of the county with clients and caregivers. And so we do have some that do not plan to look for other employment, right? They're gonna just work to the end of December and provide for
Are
their
these
clients. I'm
on
trying to
the, are
figure
these
out-
on the books as full-time?
Full-time at 30, yes.
I mean,
30 hours a week is what is full-time for, they have to have at least 30. I mean, most of them have been over that typically, but they're to have at least 30 hours a week. 120 hours a month.
well, for me, the least we can do is if we told you you would have a job until December 31st, then you have a job until December 31st.
And now
That's
some
the
people have
minimum.
some vacation or whatever that
Right.
they could.
Because it
Some of
could
it,
be
I'm not
though,
sure
that, I
how
mean,
we
that would be a
address-
management
Well,
issue for
that's
you, is
kinda
if
my
they,
question.
if somebody does leave or they use, you know, you might reshuffle some of their clients to make
Right,
sure they
right,
get.
and that would be the
So I'm
plan, but
assuming,
it's-
I would say that with the assumption that you will do whatever you can
Yes.
to try to move people around to keep everybody without having to
Right.
resort
Yeah,
to
I'm not gonna
something
just-
else.
Right.
As far as, because there would be, because that just,
So your goal essentially, or your want is to pay them through the 31st, and then they can cash out their vacation and.
No, I'm saying that they can use.
Well, I'm not
I
asking
mean,
him. what
okay.
he's-
no, I just think if people have,
Are we
you know,
gonna
we
make them
told them
use
they
the
were gonna have a
vacation
job
first?
until that we were closing the program at the end of December.
Hmm.
And I think we should honor that, and we should close the program out at the end of December.
Yeah.
And that's,
And I guess I need to clarify, my ask is if they exhaust vacation and sick to
Right.
supplement the
Right, well,
time.
that's why I was hearing that from you, but.
If they
from
exhaust
him-
that,
exhaust that,
because
that she
there's
has the
different people at
ability
different
to-
levels.
like,
It's
I will
like-
find you something,
That's
I'm
why
sure
I
you have
was
other
asking
work to
him,
do.
Cause it's like, that's why I'm like, wait a minute, you're saying don't take the vacation stuff and you can cash it out on the first. And you're saying exhaust that and we'll cover
Right,
everything else up to the 30th.
right, that's what I heard.
Okay, no, that's
Yeah.
different than. what
Other
I'm
than it
hearing
would have been
here.
nice, yeah, if they could bank.
I
hours
know,
And they
but-
could pay for insurance.
Yeah.
Well, I heard two different things. I'm trying. to
Well, again,
figure out
that's just
what
my
we're
perspective,
talking
which
about.
means nothing by myself, so. So what would you like?
Well, that's why I was trying to figure out where you were coming from on the vacation part, to see if it was different where she was coming from on the vacation. But it sounds like they were the same. So with that, yeah, no, I'm fine with keeping them on until the 31st. Now, if they quit early, if they decide to go to a different company on November 31st, I don't want to double pay them. Them
No,
getting
I
paid
mean,
over there,
and
let's
again,
get paid over
there's nobody gonna get paid if they're, people
not
then
working.
are a voluntary quit.
But
you know,
that's
and-
kind of the thing. I also don't want to pay them if they're sitting home. So I would like to see them.
No, no, the
Drive a
idea would be,
shuttle
they
bus or
would,
something.
we would, yeah, we
Come
could
in and
have them
organize your office
assist,
and pack it up and get it ready
Yeah,
to
they
move. or,
assist
you
with,
know,
meal deliveries.
Or
and
there you
helping
go,
out
yeah,
clients,
put 'em in.
specific client services, and so
No,
we have plenty of things to do.
I'm sure you do. I think that's the least we can do.
Yeah,
that we
I
can
agree.
have. Okay, so they can't until, okay,
Which is, that's why we're doing it. It's the least we can do.
okay. Okay, and then on, I had also wanted to, we have type KC here. So I have a resignation that I got for my information and assistance coordinator, ADRC, Aging and Disability Resource Person in the Goldendale office. Has given notice is going to be leaving in November, has given 30-day notice. And so I have existing personnel, an existing staff person who's actually our admin assistant position. and backup transportation coordinator out of Goldendale that is expressed interest in the position, and she already does provide support and backup in that too. And I would be interested in promoting from within rather than advertising out. And I know she would, and then I could also get training on board started relatively quickly with my existing person that's going to be leaving.
And then eventually fill the position of the person that you're.
And then I also though have an interest of actually one of our in-home care aide position people that I'm very confident in terms of that is interested too. And then the position that would be shifting out of. And so my question I had, I had called, KC to ask, do we have to, post this? Do we have, or if I know based on my existing workforce and staff and folks that have expressed interest, can I do a promotion from within? There's a lot, and we have to get permission, was to talk to the board.
I can't read your eyes, so I don't know.
So Casey had said, I can talk to the board about it. I said, well, I'm on.
Oh, so it's
agenda.
come talk to the
Is there any
board.
laws against
Ah,
it?
yeah, no. I mean, I would support, generally.
And
if
we've
you have
done
folks that you
several-
already know.
we have-
that you-
Well, then it puts one of these in-home care people to work, preferably right away, right? Because
And then that maybe.
Right,
you
there would be
shift
the
some of their
transition.
clients and the whole 30-hour thing becomes a non-issue.
a mute point.
Yeah. So,
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
good.
Okay, so I can do that as a permission to go
As
ahead
long
and
as they
do
say you could do that.
promotion from within
Yeah,
of
promotion from
existing staff.
Now, I guess the only question would be where they start out at step and whatnot. That might be a.
And there is a formal process for that. There is a way that that's determined
They're
within
personnel vendors.
HR. It was more the issue of, do I have to openly do this, especially if I do know in terms of the skill sets and
Right.
the work history, because these are people that
So this is
supervising
four
the
full
team.
times that you're gonna bring in. This is one of your four full times. Was kind of a tongue twister.
that could potentially, I didn't want to have a discussion in detail until I knew what had to be, what was okay.
So typically in other departments, what would happen is if they don't post externally, it's an internal posting
Right.
into the department only.
Right.
And it would be for like.
That's what I was gonna say. I know I've
And
seen that in
so-
other organizations where you post internally before, and then if you don't, because obviously you'd want to stick with, if you could,
Right.
inside the department, they already know if there's somebody qualified, you promote from within, and then,
Yeah, I don't really want to lead people on by doing a posting if we really already know who we're hiring. I mean, it's.
Well,
Well,
that's
we
where I
would never
felt like
do that,
in
of course
terms
not.
of the,
Well, other departments have had the same kind of ideas
Mm-hmm.
though, and so the thought was to
do an internal posting
Yeah.
in the
do I
department
need, do I
first.
have to
Yeah.
internally post it
Right,
for a week and then, okay.
right. And then,
Sure may not know that there's other employees in our department that are interested.
I know other people are,
And the
but
interview
yeah,
alone can be
Yeah.
beneficial.
yeah,
okay.
no, yeah.
So
no, I
internal
think
posting.
You can do that.
Yeah,
You
I
okay
like
with
that.
that?
Yep. That offsets some.
So a
of the-
little silver lining there.
Yep. She should have opened with that.
Yeah.
Because that was less cost
Right.
to the original ask.
Okay. So December 31st and date, no severance.
Yes,
is the- Okay.
that's correct.
Okay. I tried.
You did try it.
Is there anything else?
We're arguing
we
back
need
here,
to-
so go ahead.
My money's on Casey.
I
so-
don't want to spend the money too to advertise when I know, yeah,
Right.
so.
But
We'll
just
save
post
some
it.
money that way too.
Yeah,
Okay.
Intern will be doing.
If you'll win, but I won't make it easy.
You're right, well, right, I mean, that's.
Okay. Okay, I think that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, prosecuting attorney. You were in the House.
Did you refuse consent agenda?
We did,
Did it all get approved?
except stuff that you wanted.
It's just that one part that-
They pulled yours out.
Yeah.
They threw it against.
I said, I don't even need to know if he wanted it, then it's a hard pass on
I didn't
that.
sell his recycled batteries.
Yeah. Yes, it all passed.
So we had a criminal doc on Monday. There was an individual sentence that had a trial 2 weeks ago, Robert Theisel Senior. But an incident, he was intoxicated. Law enforcement responded to a call of domestic violence. He greeted them by pointing a rifle at the officer, whose wife immediately jumped in the way, basically saved his life. He communicated through his counsel that he refused to plead according to the act that he took. He was charged with assault 2 with an enhancement for using a firearm. And so went to trial. He was justly convicted and sentenced. He had no prior felony history. The underlying assault 2, he's looking at a range of 3 to 9 months, but the firearm enhancement was a mandatory additional 36 months. No good time is allowed. So the judge sentenced him to a mid-range on the underlying offense of 6 months plus 36 months. So it'll be 42 months, 36 of which he will not get a day of good time allowed. So we're quite happy with that result. I admired the restraint. Detective Sergeant Eric Anderson, who took him in that case, could have ended up substantially worse with the loss of life. Luckily, that did not happen either for the officer or for Mr. Theisel. He should be eternally grateful to the wife that he beat that after that evening for saving his life by standing in the way while he was pointing the rifle at the officer. And then also express appreciation for Deputy Cody Mellon, who provided the backup to Detective Sergeant Anderson. So well done to those 2 individuals and the 12 members of the jury that found a just result. On Monday, we also terminated the participation of Matthew Dunsmore in the drug court on an underlying charge of burglary in the 2nd degree. He had somewhat reluctantly agreed to his participation in drug court. He has substantial criminal history, mostly involving controlled substances and burglaries, multiple burglaries on his rap sheet. He failed miserably. In about 6 months, he was terminated. He was sentenced to a term of 57 months incarceration under auspices of the happy auspices of the Department of Corrections. He was the last participant in the Klickitat County Drug Court Program. The drug court program is now no longer a program offered in Klickitat County for various reasons. Principally, the vast majority of cases that have been accepted and been successful through a drug court program could not gain entry at this point due to the Blake decision that struck down the controlled substances, reduced it to a misdemeanor, and various other reasons, including I think some concerns over comprehensive, but in any event, the primary driving factor was this is a program that was, I think, achieved a lot of good results for the community. That was a good reducing a program aimed to reduce recidivism that I think was mostly successful over a 25-year history. But it was a program devised to assuage the impact of the harsh drug laws and the different legal and political calculations that were in effect 25 years ago that are simply not present now. There is no war on drugs in the state of Washington. There is no harsh effects from prosecutions and enforcement of controlled substance statutes in the state. There is a plethora of resources available to any individual that wishes to undertake them. So this line that is sometimes still people persist in this notion that there's a scarcity of resources. Not if you want it. There are plenty of resources for people that want it. And so, yeah, so we're done with that program. We had yet another DPA, that the DPA, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney position, has been open for quite some time. We've had yet another candidate accept the job and then have to withdraw the acceptance for the inability to find housing. This is becoming a real issue. That the payment is simply was not sufficient to live in the White Salmon area. There just wasn't anything available within a 45 to 60 minute commute. That's the fourth staff person that's withdrawn acceptance from my office in the last 12 months, principal because of housing issues. So that's
Are
because
they all trying to look for white salmon housing or are they looking over here?
they look here. That's not their first preference, especially for the attorneys. It's not their first preference, but there's just as anything around here. So that's what I know on that. We'll keep plugging along the best we can. And thanks to the hard work of, speaking of which, on Thistle, the hard work of Chief Deputy David Wall for doing the trial. And then Samantha Cabea is our lone district court deputy right now, staying diligently on top of the case law. It has been reduced, actually much more than we anticipated. I did adopt the policy of reducing suspended license tickets to no valid operating, not operating, operating a vehicle without a valid license, which is an infraction, about $250 infraction. So when we reduce that to the infraction of the first appearance, there is no longer any need for employment of any public defender or any counsel. You're not entitled to an attorney on an infraction. I was anticipating about 40% caseload reduction in district court. I think we're at 60%. I didn't quite realize how, frankly, large the suspended license caseload. And unfortunately, the two courts had different approaches. The principal concern was some of the activities in West District, where it's now become routine for the two public defenders down there to bill $500-600 to taxpayers so they can quote unquote research constitutional issues on every single suspended license case. So just we had enough of it. And the legislature has sunsetted this for becoming an infraction next year anyways. So they're just, we're having to allocate our resources to making decisions that we probably would not have made 2 years ago, but we have to at this point. The backlog is still substantial. We're making progress towards that and doing our best on that. But again, a staff person short and an attorney short, we're doing the best we can. So be happy to take any questions or anything in open, and then I do have a item or two to discuss in executive.
Open session. Sorry, I'm listening.
We don't have open.
I'm executive after him, so.
You're the executive after.
I'm executive after him. Junior executive after the senior executive.
Okay, I don't have anything either. So I guess with that, and unless, actually, before we go into executive, is there going to be any other?
Not for me.
I would just like to remind everyone online that the town hall meeting this evening at 7 o'clock has been canceled, for the record.
Okay, so this will be, we will go into executive session. We have no other items on the agenda after this, so we will not be taking any actions. Any final actions, thank you, Mr. Prosecutor, correcting me, after we come out of executive session. And so
Radio at 8:05.
we do have radio, so after we come out, we will just adjourn the regular meeting until Thursday.
I believe the Director of Human Relations has asked for an executive after mine.
I have one scheduled already for labor relations.
Labor relations.
And we'll have an executive and then executive and then we'll close.
Then we'll close. So I would ask folks to leave. We are going to executive session in accordance with the RCW 42.30.110 paren 1 I to discuss current
Pending
litigation.
Yeah, and I only need 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
For my topic, unless there's topics you guys want to discuss.
I don't have anything.
I can let him know, but it'll just
Okay.
be 5 minutes.
It'll just be 5 minutes. So do you want to stop the recording?